All right, it says we're live. So time has changed. Goodness, this time change is always a fun experience every year. And I don't know if everyone who's going to be watching this is from this general area. I think many parts in the United States we experience time change, but other countries maybe you don't have any of that. It's always fun dealing with time change. But we're here and we've lost a little bit of we haven't really lost daylight, but we have to wake up early in order to get it now. Louisiana. All right. Good evening. What's up, Kamon? Good evening. Well, bee stuff, that's what's up. I keep talking about this magical off season, this wonderful off season that we're going to have. And it never ever happens because let's face it, we love bees too much. We don't want an off season in our subconscious, apparently. And we're always creating new things to do with the bees, whether we're in the beehives or whether we're building new equipment, new things to try, talking to beekeepers. It's just bees almost 365 days here. Could be doing a lot of worse than that, I think. Thoughts on second APIVAR treatment? First treatment did not work. Well, so here's my thoughts on that. Sorry about bumping the table so much. I got a new chair, as you can probably see, and I'm still getting used to it. I was using one of those fold out metal chairs, and yeah, it was not very fun, especially for 3 hours. So on the APIVAR treatment, I had good results this year, mostly. The ones that I had issues with, it's not clear to me if it was because the mite levels were really high and it just, even though the treatment period was done correctly, it just didn't get them down low enough. It did slow them down and lower the mite loads, but they still weren't what I wanted. So was it that I let the mites get too high? Or is it one of the issues that I've addressed on Facebook and other places, and that is, are the Apivar strips as strong and concentrated as they should be? The amitraz, which is the active ingredient, should be at a certain percentage, and there are beekeepers, researchers who are working together. I know of at least three, and I can't give their names right now because they haven't published their stuff, and I don't want to be the one to be like, "Hey, this is what they're doing," and they haven't published their research and whatnot. And what I was told was kind of, he didn't say don't tell anybody, but he didn't say tell everybody at the same time. So I want to be careful with that. I'll try to call him back and find out. Anyways, they were finding huge variables within Apivar strips, which is just what we need. Is just like every other product for killing mites out there, more variables and more frustrations, head scratching, and concerns because Varroa is a big problem. So my suggestion is probably not follow up with the Napivar treatment because you already did one. Get that oxalic acid vapor out there and let them eat that stuff for a while, if possible. Hey, Uncle Richard, glad to see you on here. Roll Tide. All right, Montgomery County, Texas. I'm excited to see the chicken videos coming up. Yes, we're fixing to process chickens. I've got a homemade scalder that we're fixing to try, and it truly is unlike anything I've ever heard or seen of. And it's going to be interesting. I also got a really cool method coming up on how to degranulate 3 buckets of honey in one shot for like 20 odd dollars on some stuff you can throw together. If you have some of these materials already, you can do it for cheaper than that. But I'm really excited about this method because, I come up with these ideas after I'm using barrels. Why couldn't I thought of this 5 years ago when we were still using buckets? Anyways, that's just the way it works. Yeah, yeah, you Australians have it good out there. No mites, but and I really hope you guys never have to fool with them. They're bad business. Sweden, all right. We got one of our Swedish folks here. We got a bunch of Swedish gals and guys. It's awesome. Question: will a dipped lid warp, or was it out of shape to begin with? I'm wondering if I bought a bad lid or if it moved on me through the year. Now, I have had a couple of dipped lids warp on me when they got too close to the heating element at the bottom of the wax dipper. However, that's only happened to me like once or twice, and I'm wondering if it was being too close to the heat or if there was something in particular, that piece of plywood, that made it a little bit weak, because I've done a bunch of them and haven't noticed any warping at all with my lids. But every blue moon, I've probably dipped 250, 300 lids, and I've had like one, maybe two lids that have warped on me to where they just couldn't be used at all. And haven't noticed any significant warpage there. It could have been the company. I don't. And again, if they're sending you wood that maybe is straight, but the moisture was not dried out all the way like it should have been, if it wasn't kiln drying properly or something like that, and then you wax dip it and it forces all that moisture out, it could cause some warpage there. So I don't know. Colorado Springs. All right. I've been there. It's beautiful. Probably getting some snow now. Yeah, McCombie's Apivar did not work for me this year. So I'm hearing some people say it's working excellent. I'm hearing some people say that it's not. This is a big issue. It's a huge issue. It's one of the most expensive treatments on the market. And honestly, it's one of the more gentle treatments for the bees. And it's also considered one of our best. And for good reason, because Formic is really risky in the South during hot days. Oxalic acid vapor is not very lethal when there's a lot of brood in the colony. Hop guard products, I've yet to find any of those useful. And I have yet to find anyone who keeps a lot of hives to find that they're useful. There's just, and thymol also can be damaging in hot weather. We've got to get to the bottom of this. We have got to get to the bottom of this. It is causing so many problems across the country and the world because we don't have consistent results on mite control. And I promise you, when you get that, now we're hammering them like crazy here. Hammer them in summer, hammer them in fall. Before fall, actually, late summer, so the bees are clean going into fall. The video I did today, those bees only look that good because we dropped the mites. That's the main reason why. They're just so rough on them. And so we've got to get to the bottom of this, and we are going to with this channel. I've got some exciting news. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. I'm going to get back to some more questions. Let's see here. Western New York. All right. Go Tigers, Clemson. Oh, yeah. We might have to kick Lance. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, they're a good football team. I like Dabo Swinney. He's all right guy. He's a good Southern Alabama boy. Please share the problems with the Provap 110. White lids blew off before them. So, I haven't really had any problems with the Provap 110 except the electronics. And I think I got it over here. This right here is the problem with my Provap 110. And when I ordered my first one, it came and the thermostat was completely busted, didn't work, had to send it back. And I got about 2 years out of this one before this thermostat went bad on me. And so I've got one on the way. It's not from Provap because it's like 55 bucks from Provap. And I'm pretty sure I found a suitable replacement that's the same thing. That's about $30 cheaper. So if it works well, I'm going to be showing you that. So if it happens to you, you can save yourself some money. Um, yeah, this is a really fine tool. When it works, it's fantastic. I love the speed with these tools. I love having it, especially here in the next month when the bees are broodless. Extremely valuable during that time of the year. 500 and something dollars is a lot to pay for a ProVap 110. That's why I recommend John Oliver's Easy Vap. There's also a fellow up in Canada that makes some, and I know Backyard Bees has one, and they're also under $200 if I remember correctly. Same thing basically. So definitely go that way. I purchased this before those guys had theirs available, and definitely I've got my Easy Vap that I've been using now that this thing's whoops not working for me. Yeah, Hop Guard's just a mess. It's nasty. Yeah, Farmstead Smith. Yeah, Formic is just such a wild dog. It really is. There's a friend of mine here in Tennessee, and he's using Formic in October, and I'm going to be talking to him more, trying to learn from him. And he's really meticulous with data gathering, but he uses it in times of the year like this. And the problem with that is Formic cannot be used here in July, cannot be used at the end of June when the supers are pulled here. If I do that, I'm going to be nuking my bees like nobody's business. And so Formic, we've got to understand it a little bit more. And there's the temperatures and the humidity affect it so much because it's a gas. There's just so many variables. Again, we have to get to the bottom of this. And I'm excited for what we're going to be doing next year. I will get into that just a little bit more. California Delta. All right. How much should two deeps weigh going into winter? So, I've never really used a scale on mine. I know for Tennessee, if I've got some nice clusters that are occupying 10, 12, 8 frames of bee coverage right now, they're going to need a deep box of foodstuffs. And that's what I shoot for is one deep box worth of foodstuffs for me. Now, if you're running and you condense them down into a single, it's going to be pretty similar, about one deep box of foodstuffs if they're really packed. And I don't know exactly what the weight would be for a double deep that has a lighter box in the bottom. Some people are like, why do you even leave that on? Well, one, I've got to take it off and store it, and then I'm going to be putting it back on in just a handful of months. I mean, because my bees, a good healthy colony is going to need that second box maybe as early as late February, second, first week of March. I've had swarm cells in the first week of March here in Tennessee. So why pull it off? They're just going to move out of that bottom box, work their way up, and then when I feel like it's necessary, I can rotate those boxes if I want to. We'll have a video on that this year. Yeah, yeah. Formic Pro, I've heard some good results. The problem is you can like Shelby said, you can lose some queens, and that can be frustrating. Some beekeepers, what they do with Formic is that they apply it, they kill a bunch of mites, and then they already have queens ready to requeen the colonies, and they use it part as their requeening and mite elimination strategy. It works. It's just intensive. I feel like if I'm going to do something that intensive, I would rather force a brood break through splitting the bees or just eliminating the old queen if she's not that good, and then do it that way. I really think that would be great. Is having more brood breaks and more people doing that. How long ahead of time did you order queens from Michael Palmer? Like a year. And Michael's an old school beekeeper. I think a lot of Michael. He's really, really, really hard to get a hold of. And literally, okay, so I'm not going to tell you the whole story because that'd take too long. But basically, I didn't hear from him for a long time. I messaged him once last year, messaged him once about March again, just saying, hey, man, if you'd like to send me some queens, it's been a while. I'd like to, I'll get 40 of them from you. Just let me know and I'll send you a check. Didn't hear anything from him. It's August. I had tons of plans that week, like gobs of plans. I get a message from Michael. He's like, "Hey, I've got queens. Shipping them out your way like tomorrow." And I'm just like, "Holy cow! I don't have time for this right now." But of course, I wanted them. So, anyways, we managed to get it done. It was a wild ride. But we got those splits done, and he doesn't even send me the invoice till like a week or so later. Very old school. But if you can get them from, 'em, I like them. It was fun. Let's see. Have you noticed any queen loss when using oxalic acid in fall? I have never noticed any queen loss using oxalic acid vapor. I think the only time that I would expect that is if I hived a colony like a package and treated them that day before the, or maybe the day after before they had locked themselves in. I never recommend using oxalic acid vapor until they are locked into the colony. Don't grab a swarm, stick them in a box, and treat them immediately. Wait 7 days till after you've caught that swarm. Even if the queen starts laying on day 1, they're not gonna have capped brood 7 days into it. Let them get that brood going. When they have that brood, they've created several additional pheromones that help lock the colony in there. If you do it when there's no brood, you might cause them to leave the colony and abscond. But I've never seen it in a colony that was established, lose a queen. Not saying that it can't happen, but I don't think that would be the case in my opinion. Hello, how about how many hives could one guy manage successfully as a full-time job? A lot of that depends on the equipment. If you have equipment like Ian Stepler does, or if you got a forklift and you've got a lot of nice tools, obviously you can do a whole lot more than somebody who's using a dolly and just basic equipment. So it really comes down to the tools you have available and the system that you have in place. And that's one of the hardest things about growing a business is just the setup. I had someone ask me this question. It was a good question. Why are you still working a job on the side if you have that many hives? Are they not providing enough income? Well, because there's a lot of infrastructure that we're putting into this business. I think we invested last year somewhere in the neighborhood of between 40 and $50,000 into this that went into this business last year. Not some of that was like Jester nuke boxes to sell nucleus colonies in, queen cages, some things that are, honey jars and stuff like that are just normal expenses. But also, there's a lot of equipment, just stuff like that. This year, we're not going to do quite that much, but there's going to be a lot. So I'm not trying to pay myself a big paycheck right now. I'm trying to live off of the business as little as possible so we can get that infrastructure, so we can get those fancy tools, so we can run more colonies. I think someone who's skilled and has the right tools can handle 400 colonies. But they're talking about not having someone like you to help them out. When you've got a laurel, anything is possible. I think I said the right thing right there. It's so hard to know sometimes. Yeah, personal stamina, age, stupidity, it all plays into that factor. My lower back, especially during busy parts of the year, is extremely sore. And, I'm only 31, fixing to be 32. And so you got to watch that back. I'm going to be ordering a hive lifter from Canada. I'm really excited about it. And you all will be able to see if that's an option that is viable for what you're doing or something down the road. And that's why I really like doing these videos is, maybe what we're doing doesn't apply to you now, but maybe it can help you make a more informed decision as you maybe grow into that type of lift or system. Yeah, Lance, it is rare to get a woman like Laurel. She's pretty awesome. Um, one someone said, "Is Laurel your secretary?" And I was like, "No, she's more like my engineer." Really, she's always engineering stuff around here. I just wish she would talk a little bit more so you could get to hear all the smart stuff that's going on in her noggin. But she's pretty shy, very shy. Yeah, it's not gonna be like Ian's Hive lifter. I wish. I don't know exactly, but I'm gonna guess between Ian's truck and that lift, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 110 to 130,000 US dollars for that stuff brand new. I don't have that kind of money. Well, I'm not getting those kind of loans either. I'm trying to avoid those. Cayman's nemesis. Oh man. Oh man. Let's see. Cayman, do you use fondant? I don't use it on a regular basis. I get this question a lot. And It just really depends on, I guess, your management style. I know a professional beekeeper who uses sugar bricks on every colony going through the winter. Most of your professional beekeepers do not. They just feed their bees up, get it in the combs like nature does with honey, and they're good. And that's what I recommend. Get onto it early. Many people wait late. I used to do that all the time. Get to it early, even if there's some fall flow coming in. We don't take fall honey, so we're not worried about. All of our honey supers are off. We're not worried about that. Get in there and feed, and make sure those bees have what they need. It's getting down to 29 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was a high of 58 today. I wouldn't mind throwing on some really thick syrup on a colony that really needed it, but we don't. We've already done everything we needed to on pretty much every colony, but just maybe five or six outliers. Stand by. You think that's Ian as Kama's nemesis? I highly doubt it. Let's see. Now, so you were talking about watermelons and pollination. I don't really know a whole lot about the pollination game. What I do know is just hearsay. I have heard that there are some issues with watermelon and especially squash slash pumpkins, which is in the same family, and a lot of sprays going onto those things. And some people say that it can be rough on the bees. So I would definitely be talking to the grower and seeing what their spray regimen is. And then as far as what you should charge, you're gonna really need to talk to somebody who has more experience with that, because I do not. If I was wanting to start sending bees to almonds, how would I go about it? Where would I start or call to get information on doing it? Now, there are some brokers out in California. I imagine that would be a place to start. It'd be better if you talked to someone who had been doing it for years on the beekeeping side of things. Again, I don't know much about. I mean, I know about stuff, but to get actually the nitty gritty details, it'd be better if I just shut up right now. We explain the process of wax dipping, exactly the wax type and mixture. And this, again, just like everything in beekeeping, is not perfectly cut and dry. Initially, when beekeepers were wax dipping, and I don't even know when this began, probably somebody was already doing this with some other type of wood. And some beekeepers like, whoa, that'll work great for beekeeping equipment. They were using rosin and they were using paraffin. The problem is some not all paraffins are created equal. Some of them, aren't as pure, and some of them don't have as high of a melting point. And that's what the rosin was for, to try to get that high melting point. Because the last thing we want, especially if you're in the South, Texas, Florida, places like that, you're getting those 100 or hotter days, and then with the heat that builds up on the lid, I mean, it could be way over that. And if you've got a paraffin that's got a melting point of 120 something degrees, it can start leaching out of the boxes. So we need a high quality paraffin. I get mine from candlemaking.com. I'm not saying it's the cheapest out there, but it does a very good job for me. I use a mixture of paraffin and microcrystalline, which is what most professional beekeepers are moving to, using microcrystalline because it does a better job. It has a very high melting point. Rosin also, it's not very healthy to breathe. I've heard of some issues with a lot of rosin being in the air and people breathing that. Um, Again, there's a lot of unknowns because there's not a lot of research put into this kind of thing. But I like a 50-50 ratio of the paraffin that they have. The product number is 1260, if I remember correctly. And then I want to say 5715 or something like that on their microcrystalline. They only have one type of microcrystalline. So you should be able to find those. It's not cheap. I'm not really sure that I save any money over painting if I get, especially when I get the oops paint from Lowe's or something like that. But it does a much better job and I don't spend as much time per box. And it's supposed to last a lot longer. There's nothing I hate worse than paint that is chipped, that typically comes from, an improper paint job and not having a good primer coat underneath it. But anyways, as far as wax dipping, basically you're just sticking in that hot wax Temperature ranges vary from 250 degrees, 230 degrees. Some people go up to 300 degrees or so. I prefer something that's more in the 250 to 260-degree range. Depending on the type of material, 10 to 15 minutes. What we're doing is we're expelling the moisture that's still in the wood. There's still some in there. We're also getting some of the air out of the wood. And as that is expelled, a vacuum is being created. It is created. And that wax, as you pull it out there, just soaks right up into the place of what you have gotten out of the boxes, which creates a basically perfect coating on your boxes, which is fantastic. Let's see here. How cold can it be and still feed 2 to 1? That is a rough question. And I really feel that we don't have a clear answer and we need to. I know beekeepers who feed 2 to 1 in Tennessee till like December. I get it done early. So I don't know. But then again, these guys are keeping their bees alive. I have yet to see a legitimate case. And I talked about this in a video I recorded of something like sugar syrup causing issues in this area because of the moisture content. Good hives are really good about ripening syrup. I don't know what the cutoff is. I do know that it's better to have food in there than not to have any. And they definitely take if I mean if they're taking it down fast, then I think that's a really good sign. But I don't know 100% on that. I definitely try to get it on when the highs are, still getting around 60 degrees. But I know guys that are going to do it when it's getting in the upper 40s. So I don't know. I use a frame feeder, S Thorn. I have used some bucket feeders this year, and they work really good too. It's just a kind of a different system. I'm having an issue with some of the raccoons trying to haul them off and drink syrup out of them, and so we've kind of had a little war going on. They will eat pollen patties, and they won't eat dry pollen patties, but they will eat pollen patties this time of the year. But I don't fool with it because you end up kind of with almost a paradox at this point. If you're wanting winter bees, you really needed to focus on that back in September and even August. Build up that big population because right now you can encourage them to raise a little bit more brood, maybe here in Tennessee. I think you can. But when you're forcing them to raise more brood, you're also forcing them to convert winter bees into nurse bees to feed the newbies. So at some point, it kind of is not cost effective and actually might not be beneficial at all. Maybe be counterproductive. So I really don't like feeding pollen patties this late in the year. I like to wait until late January when the bees want to brood up because they see the day length increase. Let's see. Let's see. Where did that go? Oh, Mary A. Thank you very much for your $50 donation. We really appreciate you. And there was someone else up there that donated as well. And I didn't get to that. I just got so caught up in some of these questions. M. Riley, thank you both very much for supporting our channel and for helping us get good information out there and learn more ourselves so we can share it with you. I'm really excited about the bucket degranulation video. It's very efficient, very affordable, and I just wish I would have done it back when I could have benefited from it too. Um, I guess we could figure out how to do it on a 55-gallon drum, but that would be the feat. All right. So many people have asked about the donations and where are they going and different things like that. We are doing an experimental yard. I'm talking to people who know a lot more about data gathering than me. We're going to be trying several things out and try to do our best job, and actually maybe even having some other people around the country using the same a very similar setup with genetics and stuff to kind of get a bigger data pool basically that we can pull from. Pretty excited about that. People have been going through our Amazon link this year, whether it's buying tools from our stuff or from just going through our link to help support us. People have got the Audible thing going. We've had over 100 people this year go through our Audible link, and if you just do the free trial, it helps us out a lot, and you don't pay a dime as long as you cancel it before it continues. If you like it, knock yourself out, keep Audible. That's fine. But you can get some good beekeeping literature on there and other farming stuff. And why I say this because it makes big impacts Doesn't seem like much initially. This experimental yard between the 50 colonies, half of which are going to be Apame colonies, and thank you, Apame, for donating $2,500 to the experimental yard. That is was very generous of them to do that, and we're going to need it because between the bees, the Apame equipment, the wooden hives, feeders, not this isn't going to include time treatments and uh, feed and all that kind of stuff. We're looking somewhere around $15,000 or so. I'm still calculating up a few thousand, a few things here and there. Going to try to make it as inexpensive as possible, but it's not going to be cheap to have 50 colonies just dedicated towards finding out what kind of treatment regimens that we can have, or what kind of bees that we can have that are going to make our lives better, make our bees' lives better. So I'm really excited about that. I've got hopefully a grant going with the state of Tennessee. But even with all of those things, it's still going to be quite a bit. So people going through those Audible links and going through Amazon has generated this year almost $3,000 towards this experimental yard, and that's one of the reasons why we are pushing towards it. So thank you, everybody. I mean, when I see people donating on this, and it is awesome. Thank you very much. But the ones who are doing it behind the scenes, who go through our Audible links and are supporting us in that way, thank you. It, I don't know who all did that, but we appreciate that very much. All right, back to questions. Okay. So Craig Shelvin, what is that silhouette behind you? You mean this chair? I was tired of sitting on that metal chair, Ian. It was starting to really turn my keister into a flat surface, and it was not very fun. So all that about Bob Benny on a joint chat. I might get him on a joint chat, but we do have him scheduled for a conference that we're putting together in Tennessee. Wednesday, I am going to look at some conference venues, and I'm pretty excited about it. We're going to be doing it differently than anybody else has ever done that I've seen. A lot of the places you go to, it's a just bam, 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 and you don't even have time to breathe. This is going to be more personal. This is going to be nothing but beekeepers who are making a living off of bees. So if you're wanting to learn more about how to be successful as a hobby beekeeper or take it to a sideline or full time business, this is going to be the place to be. Guys like Bob Benny are great. We were going to try to get Ian down here, but unfortunately, the Canadian border is shut, and the Mounties said that he couldn't come on down here. Did you? Yeah, you just giggled at that. And but we're going to get him next year if possible. And we're going to also have some other speakers as well. And we're going to have vendors. We're going to have affordable syrup and pollen sub there. There's going to be several things that you can save money on. I think it's going to be great. So I'm going to have more information on that in the future. Bob Benny is, I think, a great speaker and a great beekeeper. If you haven't, go and check his channel out. Tell him I sent you and subscribe because he's got some great information. Is it possible to overtreat oxalic acid vapor, both in terms of frequency but also dosage per treatment? We don't know that. If there's anything that I've noticed, treating is actually going higher than what they recommend gives me better drops. Technically, you're not supposed to do that. I'm not recommending you do that. However, there has been some scientists now, namely the scientists out of the University of Auburn, who's saying that we probably should look at upping the dosage because what we're using now does not seem to be enough in the data that they're collecting. As far as frequency goes, that not package versus new, goodness gracious, the high mite load colony that had 94 mites in an alcohol wash, I treated it 8 times with oxalic acid vapor in a period of probably 3 months, and 2 Apivar strips. They're a great colony now. So, is it stressful on the bees? Probably. Is it stressful on the mites? Absolutely, and the mites are way worse than oxalic acid vapor. My biggest beef with oxalic acid vapor is that it's not very good when there's a lot of brood present. Outside of that, I've never seen any reason to be worried about it other than maybe breathing it with my lungs. Thankfully, the bees don't have lungs like we do. Kenneth Dutton, thank you very much for donating to our channel again, man. We appreciate it. If you got a question, please leave it and we will get to it. All right. Glad to finally. Well, yeah, Ian. I mean, the Mounties don't want you down here helping us Americans out, you know? It's a conspiracy, man. Just kidding. So yeah. Hey, Ian, how much does that easy lift cost? Yeah, Ian, how much does the easy lift cost? And how much does your truck cost? And hey, how much do you have on never mind. This is getting a little much, but seriously, how much does that easy lift cost? Did the honey get toxic? David asks. Well, first of all, I never treat oxalic acid vapor or any treatment with 36G. Let's all have a moment of silence. Um, Grand. Anyways, so I never treat when there's honey on the hives. Treat before you put your honey supers on. Treat after you've pulled your honey supers. We don't ever want to contaminate our honey supers. We definitely don't want to contaminate our honey. Our customers um, are counting on us to provide a high quality product, and so we need to make sure there's no sugar syrup in it and no treatments. The bees still ate what they had. We didn't take any of the foodstuffs that they had in there. We kept feeding them during treatments, and they're still using the same combs they were when they were sickly. I don't, yeah, it didn't. The only thing that I can tell you is that the mites died. We requeened the colony, we fed them, and thankfully the viruses cleared out because that was really holding them back for a while. Please introduce us all to Laurel. Yeah, I would say it's worth every penny, on the lift. You know, for what Ian's doing at the scale that he's doing, time is what you're. I imagine what he's fighting for constantly, especially with that short little season that he's got up there. You know, I can't speak, for Ian entirely, but if there's one thing that we're having issues with our business is finding ways to get back time, not just personal time, but instead of taking 10 hours to extract honey, can we get the same thing done in 3 or 4 hours? And that's our main goal. Laurel and I were just talking about this the other day. What can we do next year to do what we're already doing just a heck of a lot faster? And I'd say that easy lift. Um, I say easy lift. Yeah, whatever it is, does a fantastic job for Ian speeding things up. Came in second biggest fan. Viruses, they got COVID. No, the bees didn't get that. They got something that literally eats their guts and then can give them multiple viruses. And I was actually chatting with someone who had Lyme's disease just today. I sent an email to them, and I have a good friend who's just a couple years my senior who has Lyme's disease. And viruses are nothing to mess with. There, of course, there's different degrees of viruses, and some are really strong and some are not. Deformed wing virus with the honeybee, especially certain strains of it, are very hard on the honeybee, and the mites are, the dirty needle, so to speak, that get it and spread it. So that's the main reason why we got to keep the mites low, is just to keep the viruses down. I've been feeding my bees heavy syrup that you did a video on. How late in the syrup can I feed this all winter? This is my first winter. Timothy, I mean, you can, I don't know what your season's like. I think you've got a Boston icon. So I don't know if that means you're from somewhere in the New England area. Um, Many new beekeepers, and they're wanting to do a good job. You seem to have two different types of new beekeepers. You have some that just like, I'm not going to feed my bees at all natural, baby. I did that once, lost a lot of bees. And then you got the camp that just feeds too much. And they just want to feed all the time. They want to make sure they do everything possible. And I think in your first couple years, that's not a bad idea. But make sure that you don't put like 120 pounds of syrup into the colony, and then you're coming out of winter and all your combs a lot of your combs are still occupied with syrup, and now they don't have as many places to lay and store bee bread and the real stuff, and that can become an issue as well. So, just depending on the cluster size, again, I'm looking for about a deep box's worth of food stuff. So if you get to that point, maybe you need a little bit more where you're at. You have to talk to some locals when it comes to winter weight, but definitely don't overdo it. Oh, KC, okay. Well, uh, you might need a little bit more feed than we do. The inverted syrup recipe and the difference is phenomenal. Are you talking about the one that we made the video on, Christopher? Let's see. How long after treatment does it take for a deformed wing virus to abate? That's the problem, Patrick, is your treatments, we don't really have a proven efficient treatment for virus elimination. So that's what was happening with that colony. I wiped out the mites. They were like down to nothing by the time I got done with all the oxalic acid and apivar. It was great. The problem was is the viruses were still in their system and they spread it to one another and they spread it to the offspring as they feed them. And if the queen's contaminated, she's laying eggs that are contaminated with virus. I mean, it's all over the place. It can be very hard to eradicate. And according to some, that's Paul, whatever his name is, Stamets or Stamens or whatever, has that mushroom stuff that's supposed to eliminate viruses. Some essential oils are supposedly supposed to eliminate viruses. Honeybee Healthy is supposed to eliminate viruses, supposedly. The problem is we don't really have any concrete proof that any of it works. It's try it out maybe a little bit. It's hard to know. And honestly, the best thing I think is a real honey flow, that nectar coming in, nectar as it's ripened and they're working with it, hydrogen peroxide is present. And I think that really helps clean the bee system out. That is why bees build up so good in early spring. You get those good days, that nectar's coming in. They have diverse pollen springs, got the hardwoods, it's got stuff on the ground, dandelion, so much diversity in spring. That's typically why spring is so special. There's so much plant diversity, optimal nutrition. That nectar's coming in, hydrogen peroxide constantly just cleaning the combs, cleaning the bees' guts. It's wonderful. And this is, Bob Benny talks about this on how feeding sugar syrup actually hydrogen peroxide is created in the process of that as well. So sugar syrup can kind of be viewed as a almost a treatment of sort if you're needing to flush the bee systems out. All right, all right. Yeah, so hey, I'm glad to hear that that's helped you, Christopher. Some people have given me some hardcore backlash on that video. And the thing of it is, I feel like it's with there's so many things like this in beekeeping. It's the moisture content in the hive in winter. Oh man, if you get any humidity all in the hive, it's going to kill your bees. I heard that from someone who should know better in this state, very experienced. Like moisture in the hive kills bees. Just even just a little bit. And I'm here to tell you, I've got some hives with some clear covers on them that I'm fooling with, and I'm watching humidity build up on them every morning. Bees go up there and lick it off and collect that water right now. Humidity is always present in the colony. I'm more concerned about clusters these days. I don't use upper entrances. I know a lot of beekeepers that don't use them. I was talking to some of my friends in Sweden. They don't use upper entrances. And you want to talk about winters? Huh, yeah. So I think there's more to that kind of stuff. We just we err on the side of caution, and then sometimes we make rules for the sake of making rules. I want to avoid that, and I want to figure out what the boundaries are. And so some people are like, "Oh man, you're making that inverted syrup and you're creating HMF." It's very rapid heat up. It's rapid cool down. HMF usually takes a lot more heat and more time. Opinions are like noses. I've used it and I haven't had any issues. That's all I can say on it. All right. Hey, Cayman, I live in northern Kentucky, so our winters are pretty similar. I'm trying sugar bores for my hives this winter just to give my girls a little insurance. When would you put those on? So I would start putting those on sometime in, I was fixing to say November. Here we are. It's greatest month of the year. Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday. My birthday is this month, which is awesome. Um, because like my grandpa said, you're either getting older or you're dead. So I like that whole getting older thing. Um, but November's a good time for sugar bricks. More towards the end of the month, I would say. You can do it now or use sugar bricks or whatever. I don't like doing it too early. I got it into bees. in 50-degree weather in the video today. So I would do it in the 40s. I've done it in the 40s. I've made splits in the 30s. The some of the people on Facebook, and it just they experience teaches. It's another thing my Papa Jim said a lot. He's a smart guy. But I used to think a lot of those things as well. But now we're getting into bees really quickly, sometimes in freezing conditions. And I don't recommend it if there's no need for it. Don't do it just for the fun. And let me tell you, it's not fun fooling with bees in 30 and 40 degrees. But yeah, sometime in November. I run all poly hives, no ventilation. So yeah, someone made the suggestion to me, and it may have been you on my video that I need to start prying in between the plastic frame rests instead of the corners of the poly boxes, and that's probably true. The problem I'm having is that they're gluing my man lake frames up to the frames above, and when I pull up that top box, I'm having to literally pry down each and every one of them, which is a giant pain in the buttocks. Uh, but overall, the insulation seems to be pretty good. That's one advantage over the Apame hives versus the polystyrene is the fact that they're really tough. Does Ian always forget his smoker? I just think that, up in Canada, they're just so tough, that he just likes getting stung. I think that's what it is. I don't know. Hey, Christine, thank you very much. 4 kids. Well, I've only got 2, but I tell you, kids are the only thing that take more work than bees when it comes to, caretaking. Kids are a lot of work. Very worth it though, in my opinion, and a very important job. I hope they're all doing really well, and hope they like honey too. You're very welcome, and thank you very much for the $5. And we will be putting that towards the experimental yard. Real quick, I want to say thank you to a couple people who sent us some honey recently. So this is from Corey and Susan out of Kansas. I've never had Kansas honey before. It is really different than everything I've had. Really light. It actually looks pretty similar to some of the honey I had a couple years ago. Definitely a couple shades lighter than what we typically have here, though. And this is some honey from the Beekeeping Like a Girl YouTube channel. Natalie's a 12-year-old beekeeper, and she's got a really nice channel. And they sent me some honey, and it is really delicious. I had some in my tea. Goodness, that was this morning. It's been a long day. My buddy Gus Mitchell, who's one of the moderators right now, he sent me some of this stuff from the Delta in Mississippi. He's got like 4 different flavors of honey. There's just a couple. Really good stuff. The black locust is it's my favorite black locust I've ever had. I don't produce a whole lot of it here, and he's really good about isolating his down there on the Delta. And I also like to say thank you to one more person, and that is Don Bearden for sending me some of his clover and some of his just general wildflower honey. Both are really delicious, and it's just amazing. There was an article recently that these scientists in California are making artificial honey. They're like on under the microscope, it is exactly the same as honey. And we're going to make this, so we're going to help save bee lives by creating this, which is just totally wrong on so many levels. It's like comparing a diamond to one of those lab made diamonds. So under the microscope, yeah, maybe it looks similar, but there's nothing special about it. And they're like, that we tested it with people, and they said they couldn't tell any difference between the honey that we had compared to our product. And I'm crying bee poop on that in a major way, because there are literally thousands of types of honeys out there, and they just had one, which more than likely came from Wally World or someplace like that, and probably didn't hardly contain any honey at all. It was probably half. I can make something taste like corn syrup if I want. And then there's the other thing. It's not just the honey part. If you're like me and you don't use heavy filters, you're still getting, minute bits of pollen and maybe even bits of propolis and all kinds of other stuff. And there are other things that bees do to it and put into the honey to preserve it that make it special. You can't tell me that you're making something in the lab that's going to help save the bees. and it's not going to work. I don't know why people that they keep doing this. And the thing that if it does actually take, they need to be banned from using the word honey, in my opinion. Imitation honey at best. Sorry, I got on a little rant right there. Hello, Chicago. Roll Tide. All right. All right. Got some people up there. Hey, Yasmin. It was good talking to you the other day. And oh, Laurel's camera work. It is really good. And she has to put up with all my shenanigans and all the my outtakes. Laurel is still working on a blooper reel. We are going to have that this winter, and it is going to be embarrassing on an extreme level. So many outtakes. And I kind of do it to myself sometimes. But um, yeah, thank you so much, Yasmin. Hope you guys are doing good there in Sweden. It's been a long day for you, I know. Merry Christmas 2.0. Happy early birthday. Will you be selling queens next year? On average, how many splits can you make off of a good hive a year? So if we're just focused on splits and we have a champ colony, we are we are going to split that colony in April. And if we wanted to, we could split that sucker four ways if it's a good colony. If all four of them come have a good queen, they're going to build up off of that spring flow, and then you could probably divide them again. However, this is extremely intensive. A lot depends on how strong the colony is, how good your queens are, and how long and strong your flows are. I made some good splits, I thought, in July and August this year. So, some people can split more, but realistically speaking, if you're not trying to get any honey or anything else from them, you probably could expect from a great colony to increase it by 3 to 4 times easily if you know what you're doing. And that's one thing that we're going to be primarily focusing on, Bob, Benny, and I at this conference, is talking about this kind of thing in more detail, more hands-on visual stuff. We try to do our best with our videos, but it's not the same. And we really want to get people to raise more of their own bees. Now, as far as selling queens, I'm totally going to be selling queens next year. I sold some this year. We're going to be focusing more on that this coming season. I would really like to produce somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 to 1,000 queens in 2021. Yeah, yeah. The I don't know what it is with some of these people trying to the- change the honey. I mean, you cannot. It is the oldest sweetener in the world culturally. For like every culture, it is like considered the most precious sweetener pretty much across the board. It is precious. And if it's not coming from honey bees, then it's not honey. Drives me nuts. This is like the third time I've heard of this in the last 5 or 6 years. Hey, right. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for the compliment. Hope you all are doing well in Ontario. I agree. Laurel is a saint for putting up with his shenanigans. Hey, Jed, take it easy now. The truth hurts sometimes. How many times do you think Ian will complain about the wind and cold before next spring? Oh my goodness, we should totally take bets on this. Ooh, if I can figure out a way to do that, what we could do is create a poll and everyone can write down their number and we can see if we can keep track of this. And whoever gets the closest will do like a giveaway or something. That would be fun. I'm guessing about 148 right now. Oh, Ian's still on here. Imagine that. All of a sudden he starts talking when I start talking bad about him. Crispy, dumb question. Do bees make honey? I'll have to think about that one for a second. I appreciate the donation, Crispy, though. Unless you want to be more specific, I imagine you were being a little facetious there. But actually, bees prefer nectar. The bees would love to keep it in nectar form for a lot longer. It's better for the bees. It's just like you all and me. Just we want our food fresh. But in order to preserve it, because nectar spoils very easily, just like light sugar syrup does, they have to, one, invert it, and then they've got to dehydrate it down to the point where it will not ferment anymore and creates the valuable product honey. Yeah, so these people, some people are mentioning conference. We are working on getting the exact date. We are looking at the end of January. More likely, it's going to be to mid to late February. We're looking at conference venues close to Nashville Wednesday. Looking very much forward to it. Talk to the folks up at Kelly's, a few other small vendors and stuff, and we're going to look at some others. See if we can get a lot of stuff available there. So if you already need it, even if it's an extractor that you're planning on getting, you can call up the folks at Kelly's or whoever vendors, whatever vendors that we're going to have there, and you can get them to bring something that you normally couldn't get free shipping on and get free shipping on it. Then on top of that, they usually run a deal. A lot of times when I see Kelly's or Man Lake at a place, they'll run a really good price on their assembled frames and foundation, like $2 a frame, assembled frames glued with foundation already inserted, which is a pretty good price compared to making them yourself. Bottoms up. Thanks, Missouri, and Natalie. Mm, Gotta get the windpipes taken care of. But yeah, we're gonna have details on that. We try to get Michael Palmer. He wasn't available. Ian Stepler can't unfortunately make it. We're going to get him in the future. It's going to happen. Is there killer bees in Tennessee? No, there isn't. Thankfully. Now, occasionally some people have purchased bees from Texas where they do have Africanized bees. And technically, Africanized bees are not killer bees. Killer bees are the African bees, which were more aggressive than European bees like we have. But when they were brought to South America for study, they were accidentally released. And when that happened, they created a phenomenon which was hybridizing with the European bee. And instead of making the African bee more docile, it made them many times more aggressive than what the killer bee is. But the only time we've seen anything that had genetics like that was when it came from a Texas or somewhere in the South, and somebody brought some genetics up here, and they got some crazy mean bees. I've seen it happen before. I've had some in my bee yard. A guy's like, "Hey, man, if you'll take this hive off of me, I'm going to burn it to the ground." I'm like, "Just let me look at it." He brought it to my house many years ago. I'm like, "This guy's brand new to beekeeping. He probably is just doesn't know what he's talking about, you know? Africanized bees up here." They were Africanized bees. I'm telling you what, usually my bees, when they get mad, they'll attack me in threes and fours, fives. If it's a bad day, maybe sixes. Man, I had so much smoke, you couldn't see anything anywhere you looked. And they were still attacking me in squadrons in like 100 and 200 at a time. Ridiculous. And I hadn't even pulled a frame out yet. Needless to say, I suited up for that inspection. We went and found that queen and we performed a coup. 23 times for Ian. Only 23 times? Man, that's only like once a week. Yeah, sugar high. Okay, so Christine, the conference, we have not shot a date down yet. It's going to be in February. And I mean, it may be at the end of January. We should have that news for you very, very soon. We're going and checking out the venue. We've already got some caterers. We're gonna have lunch provided both days, and it's not gonna be like bologna sandwiches like some of these conferences. There's going to be Tennessee barbecue one of the days. And let me tell you, I've eaten there. You're going to want to come just for the food. And we believe in eating good in Tennessee. Maybe not always healthy, but it tastes good, you know. So there's going to be some good food there. I'm wanting to do a honey swap as well. I'm going to bring a bunch of 1 pound jars of our honey. And anyone who wants to bring a 1 pound jar to swap me with, I think that would be pretty cool. I've done that before in the past, and that's always a lot of fun getting to try new honeys out. We're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff like that. I'm also going to have some wax dipped boxes available. I'm going to purchase some stuff from Kelly's. We're going to assemble them this winter, and then we are going to wax dip them and sell a certain amount. And also with, the COVID restrictions probably going to be in place, we're not going to be able to have like, just massive amounts of people there. I mean, there's going to be a good bit, but there's still some restrictions. So whenever we open it up, it's going to be first come, first serve on all of this stuff. Yeah, and apparently I dropped a little bit of honey in my lap. Oh well. Yeah, Tennessee barbecue's pretty good. Maybe get Gus to drive some up from Memphis. That Memphis has got some food now. In the spring, when do you start grafting queens? This will be my first attempt, and I've watched your grafting videos. Well, hope I typically start around the end of March to the first week of April. It depends on the year. Year was a lot cooler than normal, so you kind of got to watch that. I want to see drones flying around in colonies. I don't like to push the season. I would rather wait an extra couple weeks, make sure that I have better conditions, especially if you're not doing it. If you really need those queens and you don't need to be making mistakes, then wait a couple weeks longer than what you think is ideal. It's I think in Tennessee you should be able to start easily the first week of April, but if the weather's bad, then wait a week or two. Good queens are worth the wait. So JD Stevens, do you submerge the cord on the syrup heaters? Okay, you are not supposed to. There's a lot of things in this country that have safety labels on them, and I don't recommend that anybody go against the safety labels because that could get me in a lot of trouble. But here in Tennessee, we've been breaking rules for a long time, and as Americans, we've been breaking rules since 1776. Now, some rules are smart to abide by, some are dumb to ignore, but I've been shocked by 110 before. I'll survive it one more time if it happens. They work fantastically, and I've used them a bunch for that. There is the chance over time, if the cord gets some dry rot, I could get a little bit of a shocking experience. I'm willing to take that risk. I don't recommend anybody else do the same. So 1774. Okay. Yes, you were right. We just made it official a couple years later. Okay. So pros and cons about different bees from Iwa Brit. So I think I pronounced your name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. So I have tried everything basically but Caucasians. And there's a few like little subcategories of bees that I haven't tried. Tried a lot of VSH. They were all right. But that's just they're kind of okay. Tried a lot of Italian type bees, um, Russian, USDA, Russian bees, multiple types of carnies from different suppliers, Saskatraz. The main thing that I have found through all of these things, and I've tried VSH from multiple different locations, carnies from just different locations. There's a great bit of variety within all of these groups. One, because none of them are pure, but also because as beekeepers, whether on purpose or by accident, we are selecting for traits every time we do stuff, especially if we're grafting. So when I stopped purchasing queens so much, I purchased those from Michael Palmer this year. But he's one of the few people that I actually think that when I get the queens from him, I'm getting my money's worth. Typically has not worked out very good for me. So I've never been able, besides with Michael's queens, to duplicate what I can do here at home. Whenever I started raising my own queens, I started having much greater success, much more vigorous colonies, and much more consistency. Doesn't mean all of my queens are perfect, but instead of having 30 to 50% issues with my queens, I'm dropping it down to like 5 to 8%. Big difference. And I can select for what I want. I prefer carnies because they're a little bit more sensitive to dearths of nectar and pollen. Italian bees tend to be a little bit just brood happy, which if you're wanting to raise a lot of bees and you're willing to feed a lot, that's great. but I prefer bees that are a little bit more sensitive to those kind of things, especially in rough years. I think they handle things better. That's my opinion. Not all colonies are created equal, though. Even within the same lines of carnies, again, I have a certain percentage that just don't meet expectations. I had one this year that swarmed way too early, had plenty of room. The rest of them didn't. I hate queens like that. They're just super swarmy. Brian Reese, man, you're a machine. I tell you, glad you made it on, but man, you got any questions? How can I help you out? I appreciate all you guys, Kenneth, Brian, all you guys donating to the channel. Hope you're doing well. Oh, my pronunciation is great. Awesome, awesome. I like that name. I tell you, Yasmin was telling me about her kids' names, and I was like, those are some really cool names. Especially, to me, they're really unique. Maybe to you guys, it's like saying John or James over here. And then you get to a weird oddball name like Kamon, you're like, man, that person's gonna grow up to be no good. And you know what? They were right. I've done a lot of things I wasn't supposed to. Definitely didn't turn out the way a lot of people in my family thought I would. You need a US flag hanging behind you. Actually, Ian, when I did that live chat with you, I felt like I was doing my country a disservice by not having an American flag behind me. It needs to happen. Laurel, get me an American flag. Oh, not right now, though. Not right now. Poor Laurel. Tell you, works hard. Well, a colony survival winter with just a medium super. I'm in Zone 7 in North Carolina. So if they have some foodstuffs in the deep, if there's a deep box below and they have some foodstuffs in that, and they're a big colony, that some people do that, especially some commercial beekeepers. They'll do what's called a 1.5 or a story and a half, and it's just a deep box with a medium super. Just make sure there's no excluder. But just to have a medium box full of bees, I don't think that's enough food. So I don't know if you've got both of those or just one of those, but a story and a half works for a lot of beekeepers. All right. When do you start selling queens? So that's going to be really a question on the weather. And depending on if we're focusing on nukes first, I would like to say that we're going to have some queens for sale around the end of April to the first part of May. And we're going to try to really, excuse me, do a better job of producing some queens for everybody. However, I just don't see how we can sell one queen at a time, and it's just not worth our time. By the time we go to that colony, put her in a cage, package her up, go to the post office or the UPS or whatever, and ship that queen, we've lost money. It's just too expensive to do one at a time. We're looking somewhere around five as a minimum order. And I know that's a little hard for some people to justify that many at once, but at the same time, we've got to make money. So that's kind of, I think, what we're going to be looking at next year. Yeah, and that PO address, I've got some letters that people have been sending me. I've been way behind. Goodness, I'm like a month behind on emails and stuff like that. So if I haven't responded to yours, I apologize. Really need a secretary, but Laurel says, uh-uh. She's too busy doing other stuff. She doesn't have time to for secretary work, engineering stuff for me. Let's see, but I'm gonna try to do like a video a month, just to have a short video where I'm answering letters that people write into the PO box. I think that would be kind of fun. I think Ian's done that before, and I'm gonna do kind of like what he did, just better. You still there, Ian? Get that American flag out. Start waving it. Hey, Jasmine, thanks for coming on. Are you going to do a how-to for making patties with ProSuite? Okay, so I don't know if you saw this video, Brian, but we did a video a while back where we were using just that thick ProSuite syrup, and we were mixing it with Ultra B, and it was just 32 pounds of syrup to 15 pounds of Ultra B. Makes a really nice texture. Warm the syrup up to about 100, 115 degrees, and it mixes in super well. Great recipe, does not want to dry out. Um, that's a great way to do it. But what I'm wanting to do and planning on doing is sometime this January is going through Michael Palmer's no syrup recipe and making a short video on that, because a lot of my videos on pollen patties, I apologize, I've just been kind of explaining a lot of broad stuff about it, and some of the intricacies of it and figuring stuff out. And I've changed the recipes because we're figuring stuff out too. And then I've switched over towards more of the syrup patty recipe. So what I'm planning on is doing some short videos, trying to keep it as short as possible, just nuts and bolts. This is what we're using. This is what we're doing to get it from point A and to point B. And I'm going to try to have that in my playlist as soon as possible. So if anyone wants the recipe, they can just go there, click it, and it's just going to be right there, easy to access. All right. I live in Tennessee. Is there anywhere someone interested in getting you some hands-on experience and all that kind of stuff? I get this question a lot, and there are some beekeepers that do that in this state. I can tell you right now, unfortunately, I have no time for it. Um, it's a frustrating position to be in. I get hundreds and hundreds of questions every week now, and it's harder and harder to get to them. And we're in the slow part of the season. It'll really pick up in January and February, I tell you. I just can't do it. And if you open up those floodgates of, hey, can I come and see your bee yard and get some hands-on experience? Goodness, it just can't handle it, all the volume. So there are some beekeepers that do that though. Usually the ones that are good cost money. This is usually the way it works, and they deserve it if they're actually a good teacher. Good information can be hard to come by sometimes. Hey, Peter, thanks so much for the $5 donation to our experimental yard. Hey, Kamon, what is a good feed for the bees? If you're going to feed the bees, cane sugar is the best. Beet sugar works. It's not quite as good, but cane sugar works really good. Pro Sweet works well. Also, it's mostly sucrose, which is derived from cane and beet sugar, but it also has some high fructose corn syrup in there and a few other odds and ends to make it mimic honey a little bit more. They won't tell you everything about it though, but it does have a little bit of high fructose corn syrup in there, but not much. So I'm just, slowly and but surely, I'm learning more and more about these products. They really don't like divulging a lot of this stuff. It's kind of like the Kelly smoke cloud smokers. They're really nice. You know why they're so nice? They're actually a dated smoker with the Kelly brand on it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like they're being dishonest. It's a good smoker. So if you pay the money for it, it's not like they're upcharging you. It just says Kelly's on it instead of Dana, but it's an American made Kelly smoker that's made technically by Dana. It works great. But there for a while, I saw some people arguing about what's better, the Kelly Smoke Cloud smoker, or the Dana smoker. I'm like, guys, they're one and the same. Both really good. Yeah, get that flag out. I tell you, I'll do it. Ian, have you seen Rick Williams using 10 grams of OA? I don't know if Ian has or not. I've heard about Rick doing some stuff. Rick does some interesting things. I would really like to see more information on what he's doing. Unfortunately, a lot of it is just kind of word of mouth stuff, and the skeptical side of me would like to see more than just a popped open hive and a couple things. I would like to see well, Rick for one. But yeah, to say that he doesn't have some big bees at interesting times of the year is he definitely has some big colonies for sure. I would like to see more. How many times should we do the oxalic acid treatment in the fall when there is no brood? Karen, a lot of people will tell you once. I'm going to tell you twice. To me, it's worth the time. It's oxalic acid's very gentle on the bees compared to the mites. Let's say you have just 100 mites in the colony. And whenever you use it, when they're broodless, you can get a 90% reduction. That would be great. So now you've dropped down to 10 mites off of your first one, but you still have 10. You do it one more time, you can drop that down by 90% and you have one in the whole hive. I'm not, that's just ballpark numbers. That's the way I look at it, though. We want to drop those things as close down to none as possible. And it really helps your bees. It's the ideal time. Oxalic acid vapor is cheap. It's it. This is the easiest time of the year to lower the mite loads During brooding part of the seasons, it's so much harder and so much more expensive and labor intensive. We do it twice here. Another good feed for bees, I would say, is if they need protein and fats, then pollen sub. You have to watch the small hive beetles on it a little bit. There's different types out there. One of the types I'm looking forward to trying is, oh goodness, they just went right out of my mind. That is sad. That is really sad. I feel like I'm a an old politician now. Global patties. Thank goodness. Global patties. Ian, have you used global patties? And if so, kind of what do you think? All right, all right, all right. Now I'm sounding like what's his face? Yeah, some people really like the Saskatraz. I only got a handful and I wasn't super impressed. I had some that did great and I had some that were kind of eh. Some of my bees are like that too. I think it doesn't have the problem is when you get them from like Cali, y- there's a shipping that's involved and they're raising so many queens. I just wonder if the queens are getting the attention that they need. So I'm not thinking that it's the genetics fault as much as it is the quality control that's going on to get those genetics to you and they don't perform right. Again, that's why I like raising my own. And it's what it works great, especially if you do it over years. You keep your bees alive. Like the video today was the package versus nuke challenge. We started those. I haven't done a whole lot of videos on them, but they're great colonies, still doing great. We at least paid for the package versus nuke challenge this year. Next year we'll make a profit. If this had been a good year, we would have made a little profit this year off of them. But when you can keep your bees alive from year to year and you can start requeening from those champs, you're doing a lot more than what you think you are. Those champs obviously are good against European foul brood and other issues. Your bees are exposed to stuff constantly. It's kind of us with colds and stuff like that. We have a lot of stuff going on in our body that's we're fighting off every day. The bees are the same way. The reason bees are having so many problems is because now we have so many more pressures, namely the varroa mite and some new strains of viruses that are really rough on the bees. But the viruses really aren't too bad if the mite levels are kept low. So once you can start selecting those traits, I think there's a lot of good genetics out there, and I like trying new things. But ultimately, let's try to get to the point where we're raising our own stuff and keeping them alive. You can select from those that just look exactly like you want the rest of yours to look from. Sometimes it's just that simple. Go to your champs, make more of them. We usually don't take orders on nukes until after the first of the year, David. So we'll be definitely keeping you all apprised on that situation. Man Lake Ultra Bee dry feed. Is this a good feed to add with sugar and such? My bees never consume dry and not sure why. Yeah, they will forage out dry when they're really desperate. They'll also forage out chicken feed when there's nothing else to get either. I've got some hitting my chicken feed, excuse me, out there. And bees are just they're looking to get anything that they can. It's a decent feed, definitely not pollen. I use a lot of Ultra Bee. I think I've still got about 110 gallons worth of the stuff of dry feed, and so you can open dry feed it, but I don't see the same results as when I dry open feed the dry stuff as when I throw patties on. That's just me personally. What I feel like I'm seeing into the colonies as I feed patties compared to open feeding dry pollen sub. But definitely, you want to make it to where the patties are not going to dry out. If you just mix it with sugar water, a lot of times because it's water, it'll dry out pretty quickly. So again, I've got a Michael Palmer recipe. It's a video where I'm not talking in it. Maybe the best video that we've ever done, and it's in the pollen patty section. If you go to hit our playlist, you'll see the pollen, the feed supplements, whatever section, and you can click that video. It just has the KitchenAid mixer, simple recipe. If it's a little bit thin, you can add a little bit more sub to it, and that's what Michael Palmer uses up there in Vermont. It works good. I like using Pro Sweet in it better, but it will work and it's cheaper a lot of times. Holy cow, I am late. Well, hope you brought snacks. Hope you're doing good up there, Larry. Let's see. I've got some hives in my yard that are still light after weekly feeding. Should I keep pouring the syrup to them? If it's warm enough that they'll take it, I would give it to them. It takes a lot of syrup to add on significant weight. Bees are consuming it every day, and especially, I don't know what ratio you're feeding. Hopefully, 2 to 1 or stronger. Or well, it doesn't have to be quite 2 to 1. I didn't really feed any 2 to 1 this year. I fed just slightly lighter than that, which was more like 5 to 3, I think is what it is. But it takes a lot of feed. I think I must have fed on the colonies that were really light 4 or 5 gallons, maybe 6 on some of them. Get it to them. I think I heard somewhere maybe from Kamon that you shouldn't use protein patties unless the bees can get out of the hives for cleansing flights. Is that correct? Some of you Northern Canadian guys chime in on this if you're in here. Folks that don't have cleansing flights for long periods of time. Because I get cleansing flights all the time. I have said though before, you have to watch your feeds if you're in areas where you don't get cleansing flights, because whether you're feeding pollen substitutes, whether you're feeding sugar bricks with additives in it, or anything like that, bananas, all that kind of stuff, there is roughage in everything the bees eat, even natural pollen. There's a lot of roughage that the bees are flushing out of their systems. But typically, when the natural pollens come in, obviously, if the bees can go get it, then they're getting some cleansing flight time. And, if you're feeding pollen patties in December and you don't get a cleansing flight till late February, early March or later, that could spell disaster if they're keeping all the stuff in their gut. So I would be very cautious when it comes to that kind of stuff. But again, I'm not one of those people that doesn't have a cleansing flight. Hive Alive syrup additive. I have heard of it. I've never heard of anybody using it that I know, and it looks expensive. Romania. All right. 8 inches of snow. Winter has come. Man, I love snow. You guys are hogging all of it up there. Tell you what, selfish. You guys are probably jealous of my t-shirt video, so I get it. I would like to hear from those who have European black bees if you see a difference of European black bees and bees with black bee virus. Huh, that's really interesting. It's definitely, I guess, a European thing. I want to go to Europe and see some of those European true black bees. We maybe have, I know we have some genetics that have a little bit of the AMM, Apis mellifera, or however you pronounce that, genetics in them, but we don't have really any pure or even close to pure. There's a lot of guys in this area that claim, "Oh man, these bees are dark. They're German black bees." I'm telling you, I don't think so. Definitely not close to pure. Were the hive beetles extra terrible this year? This was one of the best years for hive beetles for me, Trey. I really think it's because of the darn cold spring that we had. It was terrible for the early honey flow. Really frustrating. This definitely was a year of global cooling. I thought the ice caps were supposed to be melted at this point. Unfortunately for our bees, it was very cool. Bees prefer warmer weather, and I'm really hoping that next year it's more mild and we can get some warmer days. I hate sweating. I prefer cooler weather, 50s and 60 degrees. I love it. Bees don't. They're going to produce honey, and the plants are going to produce honey. They need stuff that's more around 80 degrees. And we didn't get a lot of that in April. Usually in May, first week of May, we're sweating our rear ends off. I was in long underwear May the 9th this year. Long underwear. What in the world? And we didn't even get any snow. Just cold. Tell you what. 3 inches of snow. But no, the hive beetles weren't very bad, and that was because I think of that cold weather. They got nipped in the bud, kind of like Barney Fife, just got them. Don Summers. Hope you all are doing good, Don. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So, I had someone ask what this drink is that I'm drinking. It is actually algae, and as delicious as that sounds, it is very good for you. I'm not recommending this product. I mean, as far as like promoting it is to make money, but it actually is pretty good for you. And we gotta take care of myself. You can put honey in it. It makes it kind of actually taste similar to sweet tea. It's not sweet tea. It's kind of like oh, one of those imitation cokes. It's just not the same. Let's see. More questions. You should do a video with Kaylee from the Honeystead. Yeah, maybe one day. I live in Eastern Massachusetts. Made my hives from four stock or two by stock, excuse me, to delete insulation jackets. How about moving hives in greenhouses with open ended deletion of moisture and such? Okay, the problem I see with that, Lee, is we don't want the cluster in there to actually get too warm for multiple reasons. One, that they'll brood up too early, and if you get a really tremendous cold snap, then that could eliminate that brood and waste a lot of energy. And whenever they brood up, they're committing. It's a risk. They are investing a ton of energy, and they don't have. They have enough if they're good, healthy bees to make a really good push for spring. But if they make that push too early and then there's a big cold snap and they get knocked back, it is a tremendous blow to the colony. And if they're tricked into thinking, oh, it's warmer in this cluster, they raise that up, get that cold snap, it knocks them back. Not only because they're using resources, but they've lost a lot of bees in the process. Those winter bees now become nurse bees. And as soon as they switch over from being a winter bee into a nurse bee that's feeding larvae, they have a clock that starts. And especially since were already a winter bee and already been around a while, it's shorter than even a brand new nurse bee would be. So I don't recommend the greenhouse myself. There's a lot of problems with greenhouses and bees, especially if they get stuck inside of them. But insulation's good. Also, if they're warm in there, they're going to burn through resources and stuff faster. Excuse me. I mean, there's even guys that are in. This is what I see from the pros. Guys that are even in areas that are very mild are purposefully putting their bees in giant sheds. Ian's not the only one that does that. There are people in California in very mild, warm, wintered areas that stick them up into storage and keep it cool so they don't burn through as much resources. It doesn't stress the bees out and they don't waste energy. So sometimes winter is actually good for bees. Got someone on here from India. All right. Thanks for coming on. So Dan says, I just did a bunch of Apame hives with OAV. I was careful not to melt the plastic with the hot tube, but it wasn't sensitive. I haven't done any oxalic acid vapor on my Apame hives yet, but I'm going to, I think these things are so quick. I'm just going to hold it up to, one of the entrances and just let it jet on in. And I think it'll work out really well. I'm going to try that out. I know some people drill some holes and put like a little pipe fitting in there, so it's like metal that you would stick this little um, brass bit into, and that would work. Thank you, Cameron Dela Cruz, or how do you say your name? Sorry if I botched it. Thank you very much for your donation to the experimental yard on PayPal. We really appreciate you. Oh yeah, yeah. Natalie's got she's got all kinds of time ahead of her too. I didn't start fooling with bees until I was 15, and she's doing stuff that I was not doing till I was say 19 to 20 years old. So she's way ahead of the curve. And let's face it, she looks better than like all of us on YouTube that are doing videos. So yeah, she's got a good future in this. Seems like her family's really nice too. How many chickens do you have now? So I've got just the broilers. We were going to get a bunch of layers, but they kept getting delayed because of all of the crazy stuff that's going on. And people are concerned about their food supply. Everybody and their brother is buying chickens. I can't say that I blame them. We decided because we're so busy with bees, we're going to be doing this experimental yard and so many other things. We need to focus on the bees more. We'll be doing an occasional video on various things. We're fixing to plant 100 and something cloves of garlic. We love planting garlic every year, mixing it with honey, but mostly just focus on the bees. Focus on the bees. PO box, please. My PO box, Laurel, get the PO box, please. It is 332 PO box 332, Gainsboro, Tennessee 38562. The Way of the Giant Pumpkin. Have you reached out to Tom Webster about the conference? It may be close enough for him to attend. I learned a great deal from that gentleman. He has such a passion for the honeybee. I am really not familiar with Tom Webster, um, but he sounds like an interesting fellow. Yeah, if you could throw the PO box up on the chat bar, someone was requesting that. All right, so more news. We talked about the apivar. We talked about the experimental yard. For those of you who just came in on that, it is going to cost somewhere around $15,000, and everything that we have been socking away from these live chats. People have been sending us stuff on PayPal instead. Um, Folks have been doing other things. Appamay's contributed all that stuff. It's going to be going to the experimental yard. So, and it's we're not doing it just for you guys. I mean, I want to know this stuff. I wanted to do this for years. What we need to experiment more. And I'm going to be collaborating with some other beekeepers again so I can collect more data and they can collect more data from me. Hopefully, we can get a better understanding of what's going on with our treatments, our bees, genetics. This is something that we're going to be spending years on. And I'm excited, very excited about it. And some people are thinking, man, it just the way things are right now with the coronavirus and just the economy. I understand a lot of people I know that are not getting as many hours. I am one of them now. So now that I'm trying to go back to work, they've been hounding me all year long. Cayman, are you still busy with bees? Can you please help drive a truck for us? We've got so much stuff to do. You were willing to pay you even a little bit extra. I'm like, how much? And they're like, well, $10. Click. Like want to drive me nuts. And then now it's like October and September. I'm like, I'm done, guys. And they're like, well, they've decided to shut down a lot of stuff due to the economy and everything, and we don't need you anymore. So I am filling in. I was working pretty steadily there for a while, and now I'm having to figure something out. And this is where it gets really tricky because as a business, I'm trying to invest and grow, and I'm right at the cusp where I think the business can continue to grow and pay me at the same time a full-time income. And Laurel something, of course. I mean, that's where all my money goes anyways, is because she's the one that manages all that stuff. Really, she is. I don't have as good of a mind for that kind of stuff. Laurel's a lot more meticulous. I'm more scatterbrained if you haven't noticed. Anyways, so we're trying to sock away as much money because once we get, with beekeeping, it's not like, okay, we're making a consistent paycheck every week. We make most of our money in a short window of the year. You sell a big bunch of nukes off. You sell a batch of 50 queens to somebody. Big chunks of income there. And then right now, besides honey sales and a few odds and ends, there's not as much income. And just the way that it works. And, we like to put, the YouTube stuff and focus it on growing the business and mainly the experimental yard, investing into our education, which invests into your education. And it's a great, I think it's a great system because I need to learn more about bees as well. And we need to take it to a higher level. Definitely a higher level. I need to understand what's going on with these darn mites. Thanks, Shane, and thank you, Trey, very much, very much. But anyways, getting back to all that experimental yard. I've said this. I will be real quick. Black Friday is coming up. Christmas is coming up. If you're ordering something from Amazon, go through our links. If you hit the description in our video, you go through our link. You don't have to buy any of this stuff. If you just go through the link, anything that you purchase, whether it's a pair of bunny slippers, 3% or 1%, depending on whatever it is, Amazon donates to our channel and doesn't cost you any extra except just a little time to go through our link every time you go through Amazon. That really adds up a lot. All of that goes 100% to this experimental yard. Also, Audible. If you've never got a free trial, you can go through our link and get that. Every time somebody does that, that's $15. It's crazy. I don't know how they can afford to do it. Apparently, they think it's worthwhile. But I can tell you, we've had over 100 people do it. That's a big chunk of change going to this experimental yard. That's probably going to cover, just with Audible signees, 10% of what we need to fund this experimental yard. Just people going in there, free trial. They get free literature on Tom Seeley's book or something like that. And it goes towards this. It's crazy how the internet works and very scary at times, too, as we've seen. But, anyways, off of the experimental yard, let's get back to questions. All right, we got some Norwegians on here. We got Swedish folks on here, Indian folks in here, people all over the place. Cayman, where can I find a contact number or email for you? Well, giving away my phone number would be a disaster of epic proportions, as sad as that is. But Tennessee's at gmail.com. I'm going to type that down here right now. To say that I will get to you quickly would be a lie. Tennessee's bees at gmail.com. Here is the business address, email address. Hey, thank you, Lee, very much. And, it really adds up. I couldn't believe it. Laurel's the whiz with all this stuff. I never would have started this YouTube channel. I told her no way. And then she was like, hey, what about, we need to do Audible stuff. We need to do Amazon links. I'm like, that's so dumb. I'm paraphrasing here. Why? I don't want to fool with that stuff. I hate technology. I even hate cell phones. She's like, just do it. And like a smart man, I said, yes, dear. And look how it worked out. Funny how that works. Anyways, seriously, between Audible and Amazon, we have almost $3,000 to put towards the 15,000, 16, whatever it's going to be for the experimental yard. Appomays donated 2,500. I haven't calculated all the money yet that you all have been donating through these live chats, but that's going to be significant too. I'd say right now we have got to be over halfway, probably around 60%. And I'm hoping that we can get a grant. I've applied for one for this experimental yard. If we can get that, that's going to put us a heck of a lot closer. And then I'm wanting to have a YouTube, well, live chat video just for the experimental yard where we take down people's suggestions. And we can't do what everyone wants. But I'm talking to a guy right now about doing two types of bees actually, and go ahead and starting with the genetics immediately. And seeing if we can get some resistance, show signs of resistance in some VSH and USDA Russian bees. I've never said yes, dear, and I'm still single. Go me. Yeah, Jed. Well, sometimes you just got to be, you can't be so manly, you know. Honestly, I did super well. I hope you do just as well, Jed. There's a girl up there that's interested in tall guys like you. Most girls go for the short, cute ones, but I think you've got a chance, Jed. Did you notice a benefit from the algae patties? So that is it's a tough question. I used them through our summer dearth on those 4 colonies. Now I've got to say, all 4 of those colonies look great. So there's that. It's really hard to tell on such a small test. Do they kill my colonies? Absolutely not. My bees look good. Were they better than the Ultra Bee patties? I can't say that they are. The ones I fed Ultra Bee patties look really good too. Were they more resistant to the small hive beetles? Absolutely. I feel like the essential oils, though, might be suppressing a little bit of brood production, just slightly. I don't know. Four colonies is so small. The main thing we wanted to kind of show you all the new product out there. I wanted to see some stuff for myself. The biggest limiting factor I feel like with the algae patties is the price point. Now, if you buy a whole pallet of them, it's pretty comparable to Ultra Bee. But I don't know about you, a pallet of patties is a lot of money and a lot of bees to feed that to. So, I think basically we're gonna have to see more, and maybe we can try that out with the experimental yard at some point and do a better test. But I mean, my bees look; those four colonies look really good. But again, we had a good fall pollen flow as well. Hey Shane, good to hear that your bees made it through the hurricane. I'm telling you, there's been a lot of hurricanes down there in the Gulf area this year. I'm telling you, it's just like someone decided 2020 is going to be that year. You know what? There's still a lot of good things in this country and this world going on, and you all are some of those good things. We really appreciate you guys, and we're really trying to do right by you. Again, like I said earlier, I've got a cool video coming up on degranulating honey buckets cheaply and quickly. I'm really excited about that. I've just got to get the video put together. I'm going to try to focus as we transition full time into beekeeping. Is our mission statement, and I'm really talking to Laurel about getting a plaque up here that just says, "What can we do to help beekeepers?" And that to me is my goal. I've struggled for the majority of my 17 years beekeeping due to getting the wrong information or just a lack of education in the right areas. We're having a lot more success now because we finally got that good information. We found the right sources and we got more experience. But if your bees are dying constantly, it's hard to get to that point. I feel a change coming. I really do. And I don't think this is, you know, wishful thinking. When I started beekeeping, there wasn't this online stuff. And then when online stuff became popular, it was dominated primarily by people who frankly just did not know what the heck they were doing. Not exclusively, but by and large, because typically the doers, especially on the significant scale, are not the sharing type. A lot of people get into bees because they're more like hermit crabs. Let's be honest. I mean, we've been to those beekeeping club meetings, and most of those guys aren't, the most social. Some of them are. Some of them are extremely helpful. I know some of the nicest beekeepers, nicest people that are beekeepers that are terrible at giving information to people. So you just have to watch it. And this is an awesome hobby. It needs to be great like it used to be. All that's missing is a lack of education and a lack of collaboration. Me learning from you guys, me helping you all, and maybe just me saying, "Hey guys, go check out Bob Benny's videos," because Bob is a really honest guy. I think a lot of Bob. I was able to talk to him on the phone. I am so looking forward to meeting him and having him at our conference. Just talking to him on the phone, and he freely gives so much of himself and his time. He doesn't need to, especially at the level that he's at. So I think a lot of Bob. Go check out his videos and subscribe to his channel, please. I don't know Bob Benny. I've never met him. I've talked to him on the phone. I've emailed him a little bit. We've chatted a little bit, through YouTube comments and stuff. Kind of, we don't banter like Ian and I do because Bob's more chill than Ian and I. Ian and I are younger and wilder, I think. But Bob's got some interesting stories from when he was younger. I'm looking forward to hearing those at our conference. Let's see. All right, getting back to questions. Well, thanks everyone. You guys, thank you so much. A lot of kind comments and stuff like that. I just beekeeping can be extremely expensive. It is expensive. I really think it can be a good investment too. And it's not all about making money. I mean, I did not get into bees because I thought, man, this would be a great opportunity to make money. There's definitely better ways to make money than beekeeping if your goal is just monetary gain. If I can do nothing else but help you all break even and enjoy the hobby, that would be great. I love seeing guys like my friend Richard and one of my friends David who keep around 20 to 30 hives, and they make money every year off of that, and they always use it towards something for the family. They're not looking to really pack their bank account. They use it for like a family vacation every year, and plus they're part of their community supplying honey. They have that for themselves. It's such an amazing hobby. I mean, I know people that collect marbles and all kinds of other things, and those are cool too, but you can't eat marbles, not for very long. Sorry, Laurel. It's November, time for Kamon's beard to grow long. I'm telling you, Kern's pest control. That's a dangerous thing for me to try. Brian Reese, do you have any idea of the pricing to attend the conference? Um, I don't really yet. We're looking at a couple different places, and some of them are $3,000 a day for the venue, and some of them are almost half of that. I can have one out here more closer to where I live. The problem is anybody that wants to fly in through the Nashville airport, we need to get that close. We're looking at Lebanon, Tennessee, which is not that far outside of Nashville, but it's not crazy like Nashville is in price and traffic. It's a lot more slower paced. Good location, I think. Out where I'm at, it's further drive, and there's not as many places to choose from. Same thing with catering. We were talking about maybe bringing stuff up from a local guy, and I would love to have supported his local barbecue place, very reasonable prices. But then I've got to spend time keeping the food warm, setting it out, doing all that work. I don't have time for that. I'm hoping to have time to talk to you all, to collaborate and network, and we're wanting to make this very personal with you all and Bob Benny and me. Like, I don't know who yet is going to be all the other speakers because we're looking at getting a couple more. I've got one guy that's committed, um, and then I'm trying to get Randy Oliver. I don't know if he's going to come. California is pretty strict on like everything. Have you noticed that? Um, so I don't know if he's going to be able to come out or not. Tennessee is a lot more lax than a lot of states, and everyone's got their opinions on that. There's a lot of I don't really want to get into this topic a whole lot, but there's a lot of differences of opinions out there. But I will always side on the side of more freedom to the people than less if we have a gray area. That's just the way I was raised. And I truly believe that. There's a lot of laws out there that sometimes I feel like are just overboard. So that's just my opinion on it. But maybe we can get some volunteers and stuff like that. But at the same time, so I don't know what the pricing is going to be yet, but we're going to try to keep it as reasonable as possible. But we're not going to be getting some Billy Bob from the local bee club who throws thymol and apivar and other stuff together to create a super mite treatment because he thinks that's awesome, sprinkled with some moonshine to help for his bees do better. We're going to be getting guys who live off of their bees, guys that are better beekeepers than I am. And when they tell you something, you can take it to the bank that it's going to help you. We will keep you posted. Here in Sweden, there is an ongoing walk towards planting flowers for the bees everywhere. Yeah, we're everywhere. I've heard of that. It is very important, and that was one of the arguments those folks were making, like this, making this bee-free honey is going to help save the bees because there's not going to be commercial bees out there and all that kind of stuff. And commercial beekeeping can be a little hard on the bees at times, but it's typically not the commercial beekeepers. See, commercial beekeepers were very successful back in the 50s and 60s, and a lot of them are still successful, but it was a different level of success. You didn't have romites, tracheomites, small hive beetle, a lot of these viruses, so many of these things. And the bees were a lot easier to keep healthy back in those days. Commercial beekeepers were great, and they were trucking them out there. And nobody ever complained hardly about the commercial beekeepers back there because one, the culture was very different. We've really gotten away from an outdoor culture, getting away from understanding the working class, those folks that are actually doing the boots on the ground. We'd rather listen to some article from some dude that's never hardly even been around bees talking about how bad commercial beekeepers are. Now, some of them are probably bad. There's bad people in every group, but to make generalizations like that is terrible. And one of the arguments they were making is that doing this is going to get rid of commercial beekeeping because honey won't be as much demand because we'll have this imitation honey. That just makes my blood boil. Commercial beekeepers actually are suffering because the price for commercial honey right now in some areas is below $2 a pound for bulk commercial honey. They're not making a ton of money off of it. They need to be getting a lot more because they're competing with all this foreign garbage that's not even real honey coming from China, Vietnam, and some of these other countries. I have no problem with real honey coming from other places, but if it's fake, it should not belong. And we shouldn't have to be competing with fake stuff. And I'm not one of those guys, but guys like Ian and their families are suffering for it. And that's why so many of these commercial beekeepers are sending their bees into the almonds, into pumpkins and watermelons and cherries and all these areas that get sprayed a bunch because if they don't, their livelihood's gone. That's where they make most of their money is off of pollination. If actually there was a demand more for real honey and we got rid of the funny honey and other people trying to make these imitation honeys, the beekeepers could actually get commercial beekeepers could get paid more around 275 to $3 a pound for bulk honey like they should, then maybe yeah, they would think, I'll focus on honey more and not expose my bees to the almonds and stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of different things. Habitat, I think, is actually the number one reason besides varroa that we're losing so many bees. We're having so many issues with our bees, and not just honeybees, native bees. Habitat is being destroyed. Houses take their places. People like to bush hog everything. I don't get it. It's just craze. You don't even use that pasture anyways. Why are you bush hogging it? If you're running cows, it's one thing. But people are bush hog crazy. They like their immaculate lawns and stuff. A little bit goes a long way, and if we all do it, it's just like with this Audible thing. One person does it, it's $15. 100 people did it. We've got raised $1,500 for this experimental yard. That's the power of the people. Just like bees, one bee is pathetic. One bee can't do anything. Can't even survive. Queens by themselves are extremely wimpy. They can't even function properly by themselves. If you put a mated queen, a great queen, in a cage and you just leave her alone, she can have food in there. You can even keep her in ideal temperatures. They die so fast on their own compared to if you'd have stuck that queen in a cage by herself and then put a bunch of nurse bees on the outside. And those bees are just socializing with her, feeding her, touching her. She'll last crazy amounts longer, 10 times longer. They're a social insect. Humans are social as well. We can't forget it. Anyways, I'll get off my high horse. Back to questions. Have you ever considered making a propolis rendering tincture video? Lucas, I would love to do that. I'd love to do more stuff on beeswax candles. There's so many things like that that are awesome. And I just can't find the time for them. And that's why it's so awesome that we have more beekeepers like Ian doing what they're doing. Bob is doing some videos. Bob Finney's got a video on candles. I haven't seen anyone doing great videos on propolis tinctures. I can't do it. But when I got into this, I was pretty intimidated, and a lot of you all were very supportive early on. Thank you. But when you have 50 subscribers, 200 subscribers, and you're looking at these behemoths like Ian Stepler, who's got at the time I think he had close to 30,000, 28,000 subs. Of course, you had other guys like Barnyard Bees and what stuff that had just tons of subscribers and whatnot. I didn't really feel intimidated by him, but there was others, and it's this very weird feeling putting yourself out there. I went to take the trash the other day. I mean, I say the other day, a couple months ago, and somebody recognized me taking my trash. That's weird. That's weird. And but when I put myself out there initially, just I make mistakes. I've had people call me out on it. Ian called me out on a thing or two once or twice. I'm very glad he does that. First of all, you got to have a thick skin with this kind of stuff. And you got to focus on the people that support you, and just ignore the people that are rough with you, because you can't make some people happy. Something you'll learn pretty quickly here. But for those of you who are thinking about starting the YouTube channel, go ahead and do it. If you got some good, if you have good information to share, it will eventually do well. It'll take some time. My other YouTube channel that I have on gardening, it's crazy. I upload a video for the beekeeping stuff, and it's like thousand something views just within a handful of hours. I post something on my other channel, and it reminds me of when we started the beekeeping channel, and it's taking off a little bit faster, but it just takes a while. Once you get to about 1,000 subscribers, and you get people commenting and liking, because those push the videos and help get it shared out, it makes a difference. So, but yeah, somebody needs to do those kind of videos. And it seems like in other countries, especially Europe and places like that, you all are more focused, maybe more tradition. Definitely have a lot longer of tradition of beekeeping and pretty much everything except moonshine. I think we did that first here. I'm not 100% sure. We're so proud. But seriously, you all have some older traditions, and if you can get some people to do videos on that and share, American beekeepers can learn a lot from that kind of stuff, and I'm excited to learn more. Let's see. Oh, that was some news that's going on. So I don't know, but I might be actually on the Big Island in Hawaii this winter at some point, visiting my friends out there that have professional beekeeping operations, and it's going to be fun doing videos on their stuff. One of them is the guy that produces that exotic Kiave honey, goodjobbees.com, and they do some stuff very different out there. Crusher EMC, you might be physically intimidated by David at Barnyard Bees. He's a big dude. Yeah, he's been lifting some weights. I always thought though, and thankfully I was the body type that I have. It's easy for me to keep weight off. It's easy for me to stay fit. Plus, I don't like a lot of sweets like a lot of people do. I'm not a cake person. I'd rather have meat and potatoes. I've always been very outdoorsy, but people have asked me if I do weights or would I like to. And my thoughts are, can you make money lifting weights? I guess you can if you're a big time professional. But I've always been, even as a 10-year-old, I was trying to be an entrepreneur. I'm just kind of wired that way, I guess, and it's been kind of frustrating at times. My my parents are not like that, but they're very understanding. But I always wanted to be like my dad, and that I can't sometimes. But yeah, lifting bee equipment is more than enough weightlifting for me. The thing I look at with guys like Barnyard Bees, yeah, they've got the muscle, but I can outrun them. I've always said this: you can be the loudest man in the room and say virtually whatever you want. Now, of course, I don't do that. But you can be the loudest man in the room as long as you're one of two things. You're the biggest and baddest man, or you can run the fastest. And I'm usually the fastest, so that, that comes in handy. Yeah, propolis is one of the most probably underutilized products in the beehive. We need to look more into it. It has antioxidant properties that blow blueberries and stuff like that away. Just crazy high levels of antioxidants. We need to look more into that kind of stuff. I just don't have the time. So please, somebody do that. Christopher's like, Hawaii, you better take Laurel this time. Laurel will be going. You only make mistakes like that once in your life, Christopher. Laurel's a champ. All right. Mead. Yeah. So I haven't ever fooled with mead either. I have had a little bit of it. Now, I'm not really much of a drinker, anyways. No one in my family ever was. I'm not like one of those people that believes that if you so much as smell a cork, it's a sin or anything like that. But just I've never gotten. I've just never been around it. I've never seen the need for it. I'm more of a steak guy. That's just bring me a steak, bring me some chicken. Now, hey, let me tell you, These chickens, we marinate them in our honey, delicious. The honey caramelizes on the meat, helps seal in the moisture. It works great on deer meat as well. Honey is a great way to marinate your foods. My first season or quarter season managing bees. Intimidation is the exact word I've used over and over again, according to describe my experience so far. I do enjoy what I'm learning, though. I'll tell you when I got my bees, I didn't have anyone to go into them with me. I had no idea what I was doing outside of what I'd read in Walter T. Kelly's How to Keep Bees and Sell Honey, which is a very good book. You can get that at Kelly's Bees. And when I popped the lid on that thing and I heard the roar of the bees for the first time, it was scary. I'm not gonna lie. I was either yeah, I was 14, almost 15 when on that day. And my dad and people in my family were not fixing to help me with it. It's interesting. Beekeeping has become my whole life, and no one in my family hardly fools with it at all. Interesting. Hello from Oregon. So I got some super dark honey this fall, but it had a very, very mild smell and taste. What's up with that? I don't know. I wish I did, but just so much depends on soil conditions, flora, all that kind of stuff. So this right here is from an 80-year-old gentleman in Arkansas. I took a trip to Arkansas recently, and he gave me this what is a quart of Arkansas honey, and it is way darker than anything I've ever produced here in spring, and it is really good. Most dark honeys are too strong to me to put in teas and stuff like that. This is really good for it. And this is why they you cannot duplicate this in a lab. Drives me nuts. Hey, Darian Sharp. Good to see you on here. When is the best time to move hives? I really like doing it during cool parts of the year. I would rather it be too cool than too hot. Bees will overheat before they chill in a hive. Bees can overheat like mad, and plus, when it's warm, they're more readily they tend to come out on you, and then they will sting you all over the legs and whatnot. This is a great time of the year for moving bees. It's dropping down in the 40s, 30s, and stuff like that. I love moving bees this time of the year if I'm going to do it. Also, I can do it, in February, that kind of stuff. Um, what I like to do, like if I've got them on a trailer or something, I'll face the entrances towards the back of the trailer if possible, or to the side or something, to the inside to where there's air not blowing directly into the colony as I'm going down the road. But ultimately, they can probably handle it, especially if they're broodless. It's really not the beast so much as a lot of times is the brood that can get chilled, and the brood can overheat too. Would Laurel do a cooking YouTube video showing us how to use honey glazes? Doubtful. Maybe I can do it. She can put me in her chef's apron. Ugh. And I like to do some cooking stuff. I'm just nothing fancy. What part of Tennessee are you in? I am in North Middle Tennessee, about 45 minutes from the Kentucky border, Jackson County, Tennessee. Let's see. Yeah, you don't want the queen to get too hot or too cold because the sperm inside her will be damaged. And that's very true. Dr. Humberto Boncristiani talked about that on his YouTube channel in the Hive TV. Jed, yeah, I'm sure you would love to see me in an apron. It's girly though. That's the problem. The frills are what really get me. Those little edge frills, they don't complement my figure. But no, Bon Christiani talked about queens getting exposed to like 106 degrees and below is like 60 something degrees. You have to go to his YouTube channel, Inside the Hive TV. It's definitely more sciency. It's a word I like to use. It's good, very good. But I've subscribed to it. I really like it, and I'd like to have him on sometime. But queens are a lot more sensitive than many of us think. And if your queens are getting exposed to 60-degree or 50-degree temperatures for a decent period of time, sperm viability goes down. Queen looks great. She'll probably lay just as good as she did before. The problem is her sperm's not viable. And then if she's having some issues, if it's a lot of issues, they'll kill her. So you need to be careful whenever you're exposing your bees, especially your queens, to extreme temperatures. Yeah, that is. I think it is a really good channel. It's unfortunate, you know, s- information like his. It's not as entertaining just because of the nature of it. Again, it's very scientific, a lot of facts, lots of data, and there are times where I'm just like, oh, the charts. But seriously, it's worth it. I think is for the information. He does a really good job with it. And people are don't subscribe as much to those channels as they do to some of these interesting bee channels that are more about clickbait than they are about actual fundamental beekeeping. Yeah, the Apame bottom boards, Apame hives. I tell you, of all the hives that I've ever moved, if you don't have a lifting system like Ian or something like that, forklift stuff like that, the Apame hives are great to move. It's a great feature. They've got great ventilation, several ways to implement it, several ways to shut it up. Um, they're really interesting. I'm really excited to use those for the experimental yard because one, they're tough, insulated, and they come with a lot of features, pollen traps. So, and that's a cool thing about the Apame hive as well is that we'll have 25 pollen traps that we can maybe just see how much pollen we can collect off of those things, and folks can gauge if it's something that is worthwhile to them. I love quality yogurt with our honey and our homemade pollen in there. And I like letting the pollen soak in the honey for a while and in the yogurt. Just you want the pollen to kind of ferment, not like ferment, but you want it to kind of sit in there for a while if you're wanting to get all the benefits from it. But there's a lot of good stuff in that. Have you experienced Apivar not working? Had one hive that seemed strips were inactive, mites blew up, four strips, two deeps, three other hives. It worked. Now we talked about this earlier. I don't know how many of you were on. I have been talking to a guy in Tennessee who works with several bee researchers in the South. I think there's four of them working on it. It's not up to me to name them and what they're doing. I'll let them publish that whenever they feel like they have all the data collected. But he told me that they have been testing Apivar strips and they're finding that some of them are right where they need to be on concentration, some of them are not. This is the problem. One, because we're spending our hard earned dollars on it. I don't understand what's so hard about this. I spend my money, which is fair, and you promise me for something, and I expect to get it. And it's I don't see what the problem is. But it seems like with beekeeping, there's a ton of products that there's a big disconnect between actually them delivering exactly what they say that it'll do. A lot of products like that in beekeeping, especially when it comes to supplements and mite control. And they found great variables within not only packs of Apivar, but strips within the pack. They would test every one of them in the pack and they'd find it all over the place. And they tried other treatments as well. There are several people around the country that are starting to work on these treatments because beekeepers like you and I are suffering the lack of consistency in our mite treatments. We also need more research into mite resistant bees. That is all over the place too. People claim, oh, we've got it. This is completely resistant. But all of a sudden, when it comes over to my place, it doesn't work. That's the problem. And I really, it's not that I'm against treatment free beekeeping. Lord knows I have spent years trying to do treatment free and more thousands of dollars than I care to admit. And I was never able to get any type of consistency doing everything that they said. So I want it to work, but it's got to work. And that's the thing. And I don't have a problem with people shooting for it. I want people to succeed at that. Very skeptical, but I have a problem with people blatantly saying that everybody needs to do this and this is the only way. And anybody who treats, well, you're a terrible person because you're slowing down the evolution and all that stuff. I didn't know I was that impactful and awesome. ridiculous. And a lot of times these people can't prove what they say. So, anyways, be skeptical. Be skeptical with my stuff. That's why I like suggesting Bob Benny and Ian and Randy Oliver, Michael Palmer. These people live off of their bees. We're getting close to that. These people make a living. You cannot be stupid with bees and support yourself off of bees. Now, there's a lot of people that make a living off of bees selling bee books and literature and conferences and YouTube channels. But if they had to support themselves off of their bees, they'd be in deep bee poop. All right, get off my high horse. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Amatraz. We need to understand more about it, and I'm trying to get off of it. We haven't used it most of our time as beekeepers. We've especially since I've been taking it to a business level and been trying to work 2 jobs, we switched to using it because I just needed all the help I could get because I had to kill those mites to be successful, and I just didn't have a whole lot of time. So we moved that into it. I'm trying to get away from it though. I really would rather not have it. Yeah, I'm talking about yeah. Yeah, Apivar strips. I thought I said Apivar. And so Amatraz is the active ingredient in Apivar. Someone mentioned Amatraz, and so that's what made me say that. Anyways, so that's why we used it. I'm wanting to get away from it, but we've got to have accurate data. I can't just say, okay, this year we're going to switch to only Apigard thymol product, and we're going to bank our whole business and livelihood on that change. That's what this experimental yard for it is for me and Laurel, is so we can find a way back to more natural way of beekeeping and also share with you what we find that hopefully will give you what you need to be able to do what you want. Any thoughts on the mite treatment which you use blue shop towels with the oxalic acid? First year bee helper. So that is a Randy Oliver treatment. Obviously, it's not legal at this point. I've said this before, and I'll say it again that we have treatments that are a lot crazier that are legal. So I think that more research, this needs to be paid attention. More research needs to be put into it. There are some universities, I believe. Jennifer Berry collaborated with Randy Oliver, and they said there was a little bit of issues with the oxalic acid towels getting good consistency with those. And there was one other scientist, I think it was maybe the guy in Auburn again, can't remember. But they're trying to figure some of this stuff out. But we need some stuff like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't need to be something that just eliminates the mites entirely. But if it's like, say, we can use Apigard thymol product, something like that, and oxalic acid vapor in the wintertime. So we do thymol here, we throw some towels in here, and between multiple soft treatments that are gentle on our bees and natural and not leaving residues in our combs, we can achieve what we'd like and have healthier bees. Again, a lot of Randy Oliver's stuff is preliminary, and he's tried a lot of it several times, different ratios, trying to perfect it. What he's doing is very good, but is not finished yet. And that's why I would really like to get Randy Oliver out here to this conference this year so he can tell us in person. I'm not sure if I'll be able to with California restrictions to get him out here. And that's another expense that we're going to have. We're going to pay these guys. These guys aren't cheap. They're worth a lot of money. Their information is as good as you're going to find in America, North America. So, I'm going to get those guys out here if I can this year. Definitely already have Bob Benny. Got another guy just confirming dates. We'll announce that later, as soon as possible. We got to figure out all those prices and stuff. Looking forward to it. Hello from Brazil. So, we've got to figure out all these treatment stuff so we can all be much better beekeepers. And hopefully we can figure out some more resistant bees that actually are consistent. Let's say we can just get a bee that's 25% more resistant than what we have now. Will we need to still use treatments? Yes. But we could probably eliminate our treatments by at least 30%. That would be awesome. It would be amazing. But we just need proof. We need consistency. Let's see. Apame styrofoam box. What advice do you have for a new beekeeper getting into the business, like selling bee products? So the first thing is, don't be like me. Don't be like most beekeepers and overrun your headlights. Being gung ho and loving bees, you always want to get more than what you can handle early on for your experience. And sometimes it's not what you can handle as far as time wise. It's just you don't implement the things you need to do to keep them healthy and at a high level. I think this may be the truest thing that I've said on YouTube, and I'll say it again. If you cannot keep 10 hives successfully and profitably, you cannot do it at any more than that. You cannot do it at 100. You can't do it at 20. If you can do it at 10, then let's time to go. I'm not saying that if you have 5 hives this next year, you shouldn't expand to more than that. But but it's one thing for you to make your own splits and your own bees than to go and purchase 40 more hives to add to your 5. I've been guilty of doing that, and it always bit me in the rear end. Because if you have what it takes to keep 5 correctly, you're not going to need to buy those 45. You're going to work your way up a little bit more in the next year, and in the following season, you're going to have more than 45, and they're going to be better than the ones you bought because you made them, and you're only doing and keeping the best stuff. You're not getting who knows what from where with queens that are usually very poor. So focus on what you have and do well with it. As far as honey and all that kind of stuff, a lot of people are charging $1 an ounce for honey. Great for them. I love it. Makes my prices that are a lot lower sell off the shelf like nobody's business. Love it. So there's people that are selling honey for really high prices because they market good. So it depends on what type of beekeeper you want to be. If you can market your products and get people to get on your brand, and then you can do well with that. And a lot depends on your area. Some places are really poor honey production areas. This area where my house is a terrible honey production yard. Some years it's pretty good. Some years it's absolutely abysmal. Makes no sense to have a honey yard up here. I will not have a honey production colony up in this bee yard next year. If there's a big colony up here, it's because it's going to be for queen rearing or something like that. So it's close to the house and I can manage the queen cells and all that kind of stuff. This yard is going to be turned into a nucleus colony yard and a mating yard because it's no good for honey production. So you've got to weigh that into consideration. That takes time. You can't. How do you know where the good bee yards are? You can drive around and look for forage. Sometimes the areas that look the best sometimes end up being the worst. Sometimes it's really hard to figure that out. I would look for areas that have good soil fertility. That's a good place to start. Let's see. Brandon Roberts, thank you very much for your donation. You asked a question. I heard you talk about shipping within US. What's best option for 4 to 8 pounds? And I imagine you're talking honey. Laurel, what's the best option for that? Got to ask the person that knows stuff. Of course, they change it constantly. The price keeps going up. Yeah, the holiday pricing is coming in, so they're ringing in the Yule tides and all that kind of stuff with jacking up the prices. Thanks, government. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. If you haven't watched that Christmas movie, it's very American. Let's just put it that way. Um, well, I mean, it's within the U.S. Mhm. So you can get priority and regional rate boxes from USPS.com for free. So there's your boxes right there. Now, whatever their flat rates are for that box, you'll have a flat rate. And that's what we typically do with ours. Regional boxes depend on the region, but the priority ones are pretty much universal for the United States, correct? So I can ship something to Hawaii for the same price as I can ship to my buddy in Columbia, Tennessee. So that's typically the best way to do it. Honey is heavy, so it is better, I think, to ship it that way. But typically, you have to look into it a little bit more. But that's what we're doing as priority. But yeah, they just love raising it up. So some Willie Pete said, I am seeing drones coming from one of my hives. Can it be setting up to swarm? Now I imagine you're probably in an area that's somewhat, north area around me. You're not in like Hawaii or something like that. Now, one of the guys on YouTube released a video a while back, and he's got a lot of subscribers. We've already talked about him tonight. And he had a video with a hive that had like 4 frames of bees and at one frame of a lot of drones in it, and said, "Oh my goodness, they're raising a lot of drones." I'm paraphrasing. That means they're fixing to swarm. That's a lot of hogwash. You can have a lot of drones in a colony and they not be gearing up to swarm. Now, sometimes you'll see a lot of drones when the bees are swarming because that's typically when you have the most drones, is because there's the most nutrition coming in. And if the colony backfills, the other swarm. This time of the year, if you're seeing a lot of drones, that either one, you've got a lot of brood and they've got a lot of resources, or two, maybe you have a drone layer, depending on where you're at. But I don't look at drones and go, "Oh my goodness, look at all these drones. They're fixing to swarm on me. Look at all these drones in here." We have colonies we purposefully put drone frames in so we have plenty of drones to mate our queens. They don't show any signs of swarming more, especially since it was a 4 frame hive. I thought it was a 5 frame nuke, had like 4 frames with the bees. Colonies that small shouldn't be raising drone combs anyways, unless if you let them go foundationless. Sometimes they will, though. It's another reason why I don't do foundationless. I At that stage, bees don't always make the best decision. They're all a little different on their genetics, but a lot of times they're just thinking, okay, we need to get up to a halfway decent size, swarm again, reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. It doesn't matter if it's Y as always. I mean, I've had bees swarm in September. Terrible time of year to swarm. It's completely stupid. But they're not thinking logic. They're reacting to stimuli. That's how they do everything. So it's all about stimulation. What are your bees experiencing? And they're going to base all their decisions based off of whatever stimuli is going on in the hive. I imagine I would be concerned about a drone layer if you're in a really cold area right now, or perhaps it's just a really strong colony. I have had drones in January on some great ripped colonies. A lot depends on power, bee power. If they feel like they can expend it, they will. Doesn't matter if it's common for that time of the year to have a lot of drones. Priority Mel Cubic. Boy, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about the other ones either. Laurel's the whiz when it comes to saving money around here. I tell you, I might be the one that overall has brought in more cash flow into the bank account. But if you calculate all the money that Laurel has saved us with wise decision making skills and stuff like that, we're tens of thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. You hear that, honey? You're awesome. Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. So, can you make what's for dinner? I'm in trouble now. I'm just messing. I've already eaten. Does anyone know where backyard bees NC disappeared to? He just posted on one of my videos. Yeah, this morning. Are you talking about, was he on here earlier and he disappeared? I'm planning on raising queens and selling nukes next year. Is it better to use a 3 frame mating nuke and then transfer queens to a 5 frame, or use the 5 frame for mating? If you're not planning on selling, okay, you're planning on raising queens and selling nukes next year. If you're not going to sell individual queens and you're just planning on raising them to be in a 5 frame nuke anyways, just go 5 frame nuke. If you're wanting to help keep that cluster warm and help them grow a little faster, you can make yourself a little board that just is basically like a follower board, a division board. It just sits down there in the frame rest. You just make a board that frame rest space is usually about, depending on the manufacturer, around 3/4 inches, 5/8. You can make your board that'll go from that fill that whole space and go across. It doesn't have to be perfect unless you're trying to divide bees up. and then just make a section that goes down in there and you just block the airflow so you can take your 5 frame nuke and reduce it down. I would just totally do 5 frame nukes if that's what you're planning on selling them out of. If you're not trying to sell queens, just do 5 frame. It'd be a lot simpler. Michael Bush will come to the conference. His fees are on his website. Huge draw. Michael Bush would bring a lot of people, but honestly, Michael Bush will not be asked to come to this conference. This is a conference for people who can make a living off of bees instead of information. Michael Bush, mm, him and I don't have the same philosophy on beekeeping. He's welcome to do whatever he wants. I'm going to do whatever I want, but this is about people who can prove what they do actually works. And we're going to be bringing in professionals. And Michael Bush would bring a lot of people in. We're trying to bring people in here who are going to help you be successful. And I don't think Michael Bush can do that. A lot of us used to follow Michael Bush years ago, and just his information um, does not work consistently for pretty much anybody who lasts a long time in beekeeping. That's just my opinion on it. It's not that all of his information is bad. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but he is not Bob Benny or Ian Stepler, not even close. And I'm not those guys either. Um, you know, lo- I used to follow a lot of what Michael Bush said. It cost me a lot of money. And I'm trying not to. I This isn't supposed to be a roasting channel. I feel like I've done a lot of roasting today on those guys in California doing the funny honey, mess with barnyard bees, Michael Bush. But I've got some history with some of these people. If I don't know people, I don't talk. I'm not going to say anything. But I'm trying to help people out. And I can't just be nice and say, "Hey, this person's a good person too." Go watch their stuff because I'm just a nice guy. I want to be nice, but if their information sucks, then I can't recommend that with good conscience. Otherwise, I'm defeating my whole purpose of this YouTube channel, which is to help. And whether we do it correctly or not, I'm sure we make mistakes. Our goal is to help you all be successful in your beekeeping venture. So Backyard Bees, NC had left the videos he had already posted. So what's up? Did he cancel his channel? His whole channel is missing. Okay, wow. Oh, okay, wow. I didn't know that. Yeah, leave the videos up. What sign of nature do you use to decide when it's time best to do splits in your neck of the woods? So, um, when the bees, ideally, if you're going by what the bees want to do, um, then and that's the best time. You're gonna get your highest percentage on successful mated queens. You're gonna have ideal situations for your nukes to grow and your splits to grow. Is you're gonna go by what the bees are showing you when they want to make splits and stuff. So I see my bees on a mild year start wanting to swarm on those big champs in March. And if you order a mated queen from somebody, you can make splits in March. I did that with 5 Hawaiian queens last year in 30-degree weather. It dropped down in like the 20s that night. Great bees, all of them survived. I gave them a frame of brood or two and like 2 or 3 shakes of bees. Good bee coverage. And that's the main thing is just getting the bee coverage on the splits. And all the splits did really well. A lot of people in this area will tell you you cannot do that. And I would have agreed with them several years ago. We've got to push the boundaries. Now, when you're just starting out, maybe be careful on the boundary pushing. But I've got to keep growing. That's the best part about beekeeping is all the new stuff to learn. So whenever the bees want to start swarming is a good indication. I hate losing swarms. I'd rather split the hive and lose half my honey crop because I split the bees and keep both of them than to lose a swarm. Because then you still usually only get half the honey crop anyways. But then you lost all those bees. And a lot of times those first primary swarms would have fully drawn out a deep box of foundation in a heartbeat and made a really wonderful split. So whatever your season is indicating, keep in mind colony size varies a lot. You might have a double deep that needs to be split in March first or second week in my area, and you might have a colony that's you know lagging behind, and it won't need to be split till a month later. So usually between late March and June, I find is my best queen mating and split success. It's the easiest for sure. Early June, typically. Yeah. Well, I used to think Michael Bush was a genius on bees too, and that's it's fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. Um, the thing with the biggest problem I have with Michael Bush is he talks a lot of stuff, but he cannot prove any of it. And some of us have purchased queens from him, and they are not very treatment free around here. And then there might be reasons for that because we have a long season. We produce a whole lot more mites than people do in the north. I talked to Ian Stepler about his mite control. Totally different regime. If I did what he did down here, I'd lose bees like crazy. So we brood a lot more. Also, I don't know. It's just it never worked for me. I had some issues with Michael. My understanding is that North Carolina Beach was hacked and lost the videos or something like that. He decided to quit and spend time with the family. Man, Hope, I did not hear that. That is really a bummer. Man, that kind of freaks me out. I'm gonna probably Laurel keeps telling me that we need to download all the videos on YouTube because right now, if we got hacked and or something happened and I told everybody that I said something stupid and YouTube didn't like it and they took everything down, we would lose everything. We have no backups for these videos. That would be That would be interesting. I hope that we Laurel, you were right again. We need to back those things up. Are you still using CDX wood for your tops? Hey, Jason Adams, I saw your message. I was just people are suggesting that we back up our videos because one of the guys we know, his channel's gone. Oh, you're watching? Oh, Laurel's like the eye in the sky. So on our CDX lids, Jason, we're still using CDX. They can warp a little bit, just a little bit. But I usually don't have bad warpage with the CDX if I've got those half-inch rims and those two bars on the side. I'm starting to make those bars 2 inches. Occasionally I get a little bit of bowing, just a tiny bit. If you throw a brick on it, it straightens it out. The Advantech is worse about that. I'm actually fixing to release a video on Advantech lids and why we moved away from them, some a little bit more vivid details and all that kind of stuff. So let's see. I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. But yeah, the CDX are cheap, about $4 a lid. Now, Bob Benny gets a really high quality plywood down there at Atlanta. It's much, much more expensive, but he says, it just doesn't warp at all. But, by the time I drove to Atlanta and got those and made the lids, goodness, I'd probably pay more than double. And they seem to be working pretty good for me. I am using a lot of that Reflectix product underneath the lids and it seems to be really sealing the gap. Yeah, the MDO. Thank you. And that Reflectix seals the gaps really well. And if you keep a brick on it, it flattens those suckers out, no problem. But I typically don't have a problem with that much these days. Yeah, Google Cloud, Brian. I need to look into that. Let's see. Cayman, what are your thoughts on the beetle baffle that goes around the top of the bottom board to keep beetles from climbing up the hive? I have never used one, so I don't have any experience with that one, John. Can't be much help there. I imagine it's going to be like a lot of the beetle treatments. is that it'll probably help to a degree. It just depends on what the price point is, if it's worth it. It's also going to depend on if it's getting in your way at times, when you're either needing to treat, things like that. So I don't know, but don't have any experience with it at all. My experience with most of these treatments, like beetle blasters, I threw some in a hive this year, and it knocks down the percentages, but it's just they're always present. We need a better small hive beetle treatment, something that is going to be more effective and lure them in and just kill them a whole lot better. And it's not messy like all these oil traps and stuff like that. Not going to be super expensive. You know, innovate, folks. I'm telling you, if you can create something that I don't understand it. It seems like everyone wants to do some type of product that only halfway works or doesn't even work at all, but they throw it out there for testing. I know people like to support their products, but geez, we need something that actually works. And there's nothing, and you have every reason to make something that works. If you can create something that is affordable, that actually will kill small hive beetles or kill mites, and it actually does its job and is reasonably priced, it can even be kind of a little bit on the expensive side. As long as it actually really works, you're going to make a lot of money. Big demand for that kind of stuff. Get out there and innovate. We're trying to do some of that stuff too. We just don't have time. Actually, we're working on some products right now, um, and one of them actually more than others. But we just it's harder to find time to devote to it. But man, I'm telling you, create some products out there, folks. If you can create a good product in those categories, it's going to sell. And if it's good, and I try it out, I'm going to tell people about it because we're here to help and all that kind of stuff. Uh, So you paint your reflectix, paint it black in winter, almost as good as chloroplast. Huh, interesting. HDO and MDO plywood. I haven't seen any in my Lowe's, but I haven't looked really hard either. Maybe they could order some for me on that MDO. Nukes that are a mile away from big ones, if they're all fed, I've talked to guys saying we cluster. Okay, that wasn't even addressed to me. Yeah, Fat Bean Man puts borax inside small size chloroplast bait trap sealed with Crisco. Look it up for hive beetles. That's been around for a long time. I think there's a reason why most people don't use it. It's not super effective. Not saying that it won't chip at their percentages. There also might be some legality issues with that. Um, I know that our state inspector here is very hard nosed about that kind of stuff. Like you're going to get fined if you find any of that inspecting colonies. Most people aren't getting inspected, but I have to get inspected every year because we sell bees, right? So that's something to watch out for. Is you don't want to have anything illegal in your hives, even if it does work. When you're getting inspected, you get a nice big fine. But uh, all of these work a little bit. What I envision as a good small hive beetle trap is something that, one, if they get into it, they're done. It is very hard to eliminate beetles with something sticky. I've tried this. I mean, tried all kinds of sticky products that and they'll just stuff that'll catch mice, stuff that'll catch other types of big bugs, roaches, and all kinds of stuff. Small hive beetles will go through there like a half track going across Normandy. I'm telling you, it's just they probably didn't have half tracks in Normandy, but whatever. They truck through it. It's just the small hive beetle. If it was not so frustrating, it would be one of the most fascinating, tough little insects that I've ever spent so much time on. Brian Reeves, man, you're a crazy man. I appreciate you very much. Thanks so much for coming on. Yeah, I look forward to sharing the information with the conference with you, and I hope to meet you there. We'll be talking to you about that soon. You take care, man. So the beetle buster baseboards, they work as well, especially when they're completely open. My bees propolised them about halfway through the season. Up to that point, they were eliminating beetles very well. However, I don't have time to go under and unplug them. Also, there's the price point problems. One of the reasons why I stopped doing videos on them because I'm supposed to be recommending videos that are going to be cost effective and work at a high level. The beetle busters work, but they're not anywhere close to cost effective for an operation like mine. Same with the flow hive. They work, It cost me 100 something $1,000 to outfit my operation with flow hives. So there's a balance there. The beetle buster boards do work though. Um, but definitely, it doesn't kill all of the beetles. I've never seen anything that actually eliminates all the beetles. So Paula asks, when do you start feeding sugar bricks? Well, I really actually don't feed sugar bricks as a rule. I did my first videos on those last year, and I'm going to be doing a couple more this year. One, because I like trying new things out. The YouTube channel gives me a kind of a new lease on life because it's actually worth my time to show people. And some people want to feed these. And so I do those videos. I'm not making hundreds of sugar bricks to put on my hundreds of hives because I don't need to. I already fed sugar syrup. But I'm going to try to do two different recipes this winter and keep them short and sweet. But honestly, I've already got a video up on sugar bricks. It's just a certain ratio of water to bricks, and it's super fast and easy. Just you can start throwing them on right now if you want to. Throw them on now. If they eat one, throw another one on. Just keep at it. Um, all that kind of stuff. Right. And a lot of people, especially new beekeepers, use them regularly, whether they need them or not. There's a beekeeper that's a professional in Kentucky named Kent Williams, and Kent's a really nice guy. And he uses sugar bricks, I think, on every one of his hives. But see, Kent changes stuff constantly. What he was doing 10 years ago, he's totally not doing now. He might not even be using sugar bricks this year. I don't know. But I know for a while he was using sugar bricks on a professional scale. I just don't think it's worth it. When you got guys up in Canada and Vermont and California and pretty much every professional for the most part does not use them. They're not necessary, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. It's just means that you don't have to use them. Especially if you're concerned that they're light, I would totally recommend that you use them if you're not sure. It would be better to have a little bit too much sugar brick in there than to let your bees starve for sure. Sugar bricks cost pennies compared to what a new hive would cost. Sell bees by the frame around $85 per frame covered in bees, the way people can decide how big they want. Wow. So people in Washington state are selling bees on Craigslist by the frame and bees. That is we don't do that around here. Now, 85 bucks per frame. Maybe I need to look into that. I'm telling you what, a 5 frame nuke. Holy cow. I'm going to retire. But yeah, I mean, hey, if you can do that, knock yourself out. That's a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, if you're still getting mite drops after 5 treatments, I mean, you need to keep hitting them. If they're significant mite drops, if you're just getting one or two mites, that's one thing. But if you're getting significant mite drops, yeah, keep hitting them. The oxalic acid vapor isn't going to do near as much to the bees as the mites will. Not even close. Wow. Plus, they can throw in a honey frame and a pollen frame at less money. Okay. Stay up late. Yeah, it's 9:43 here. This time change is really it's always fun when they do the time change. I don't know why we still do it. I don't. Hey, JP, the B man. Thanks for coming on. 4:43 in the morning here. I tell you what, you Swedish folks are tough. You guys come in here all the time, and it's always like 2 or 1 a.m. or whatever it is. I like bees, but that's some dedication right there. As a sideliner employee, what's the max amount of bees you think is a manageable with a second full-time job in New England? Okay. Well, I can tell you right now, especially this year, not so much. I didn't hardly work after March and just couple days until about a month ago. And I've been filling in a lot more. And we're running like 300 something hives. But I've got Laurel. That's my secret weapon right there. Not so secret, but she is You can't get employees like Laurel, and she's not my employee. Um, I was saying how the foreman over here, she likes to tell me what to do. Well, and it's usually it's a good idea that she has. But no, seriously, yeah, the YouTube channel is your idea. Like most of the greatest ideas that I've had, I didn't really have. It seems like so weird. All right, seriously though, for one person, again, it depends on the tools and all that kind of stuff. I would think somewhere around 100 to 200, depending on your management style and the tools you have available. I know guys who have full time jobs that get seasonal help that are running 400 hives, but they have forklifts, they have the trucks, and they built that up over many, many years. But totally, I mean, especially with the market right now, do you really want 400 hives? 100 is a lot. 50 is a lot. If you're doing 50 hives at a very high level and you have a decent area for bees, you could be producing barrels and barrels of honey and selling some bees, some nukes as well. And that would, but again, you got to have a good bottling system. You got to have a quick extraction system. You got a full time job. Do you have people that can help you? So it really, there's a lot of variables there. Hard to answer. I would think somewhere around the 100 area would be pretty manageable, and more if you have a good setup. You Swedish people are too kind. Yeah, her ears perked up quick. I'm telling you what. I think God gave women this like extra sense. Us guys, we just have the basic senses. Women have extra senses. I know my mom certainly did. Goodness, that woman could look at me and it's like she was staring into my soul. And she knew what I was thinking better than I knew what I was thinking. Uh, I have a great mom, by the way. I know a beekeeper in West Tennessee who used Amitraz off label and it didn't work any better than the strips. That's not too surprising. These when you go off label, and there's just so many variables here, and that's why we've got to do testing. That's why we got to have this experimental yard. And that's why we got to have more people than just me doing experiments and putting hours and hours money into it and and just years ultimately because there's so many variables and we have got to isolate these variables as much as possible so we can get some consistency. What to do with a large queenless hive this time of the year? Well, you can combine it back. I really like running a bunch of little colonies. I have some colonies that are about 4 frames strong right now, and they are just basically queen holding colonies. This is just something to think of in the future. You can split them late in this area. September, no problem. Get a good queen, make a small split, make a bunch of them, make 50 of them, 100, depending on what you have. And they're insurance queens because we always have a small percentage of queens that come out of winter and they just don't want to do anything. They've either run out of gas, so to speak, and then you have colonies that were smaller than them. They have a big cluster, but they ran out of gas in wintertime or late fall. They're done. You have a colony that has 3 or 4 or less frames of bees and that they have a great queen, and they'll just take off running and surpass them. But if we can find those colonies and introduce that little 3 frame, 4 frame colony with that young queen, they'll take off like a rocket. It's kind of like what Michael Palmer's doing up there with his little colonies. Ian's got those nucleus colonies up there. It's sustainable beekeeping. It is having backup plans for your colonies. So if you don't have one of those though, that's fine. You can combine that with another colony if you want. You definitely don't want to let it stay alive though by itself and it come out of winter with a bunch of bees that are going to go laying worker on you. I'm losing my voice here. And then you end up with a bunch of worker comb that ends up being drone comb. So paper combine would be the best. And when you're doing that paper combine, give them a little bit of a bit of feed while you're doing it. Not a lot. Just spritz some feed in there. It doesn't matter if it's even 1 to 1 and it's getting down to 30 degrees. Make sure it's warm syrup. By the time that syrup gets cold, it'll already be in their tummies and they'll be using it to heat themselves up. Spritz the bees below, spritz the bees above just a little bit. Give them that little snack. They love it. Paper combined. Yeah, all the best moms have eyes in the back of their heads. I tell you, it's this innate this thing that they've got going. You know, my dad was a great dad, but just very different how they responded to things. My mom could see through me. Um, dad not so much. He, let's see. If you ever trapped a colony out of a tree, one of my swarms ended up in a neighbor's large hollow tree. They didn't want to cut it down, entrance too small to smoke them out. I have never pulled them out that way. The only way I've ever gotten bees out of a tree is with a chainsaw. I had that one rotten tree that some people cut down with a chainsaw this year, and I pulled them out. Super easy to get them out. I don't really do cutouts because it's too much work, and I can spend the same amount of time making two splits easily in the time I can do a cutout, sometimes more than that. So I focus on that instead. Not saying you shouldn't do it. There are some people out there that are very good at that kind of stuff. I am not one of them. Sorry. Yeah, Honeybee Sweet has got some pretty good stuff on their website. I know there's some guys on B Source that have some really good forums on B Source about just that kind of stuff and methods, and really good ones from the look of them. But B Source is more and more the really good beekeepers are leaving it because it's there's better places to go, and they keep changing things, and beekeepers don't like change a lot of times, especially when it comes to the computer stuff, because most beekeepers are not very good computer people. That's not always the case. Is there anything I can do to keep yellow jacket wasps from trying to get into my hives other than reducing the entrances? And I tell you what I did to the yellow jackets we had here. We finally found the nest and we dropped some gasoline in there. I'm sure the EPA would love me. Maybe it was kerosene. It was one of those enes. Um, but let me tell you that really helped reduce the yellow jacket populations. There's a lot of different ways to go about it as far as eliminating the nest. But the best thing you can do is reduce the entrance and keep strong bees. That's the only thing I do for yellow jackets. Pretty much just keep strong bees. I don't even have reduced entrances that much. A lot of my big colonies still have 6-inch openings in their hives. Hey, Cayman, if I have a gap on the backside of my hive where the super and the brood box meet, what do you recommend I fill it with? Where the super and the brood box meet. Well, I have some hives like that. And the older they get, the more hives I have that are like that. Honestly, just try to make sure it's not, a lot of rain's not getting into it, I guess. But I typically just leave them. We get tons of rain here. A little rain gets in the hive through that gap, they'll survive. Maybe just put a piece of Gorilla Tape over it, some type of tape to seal it up through the winter. You can put a little beeswax, just plug some beeswax in there. That'd be great. That'd probably work really good. I know I've done that a bunch. You just get you some beeswax, you've scraped off the top bars and force it in there and plug it in really good. And that probably worked just fine. Keep that water out of there. Cayman, I need your woodwork skills. I still have longs I want to make into hives, and just for the fun of it, still using my frame size though. Well, my woodworking skills aren't the greatest. Um, they're kind of middle of the road, not excellent, good enough for beekeeping. And it's kind of sad because I'm more and more getting away from building my own equipment. But that's the biggest thing we're addressing. It's nice that this is our biggest problem right now. It's not mites. It's not do our bees have enough food for winter. It's not queens. The nutrition looks good. We're gonna still be trying to get better at those things, but it's not the big issue. Our bees look really good going into winter. I'm very optimistic for our best year ever next year. Our biggest issue is time, and I don't have time to build equipment. That's why we're buying everything now. It's weird. I bought it pre-assembled frames last year. Oh my goodness. What a lifesaver. Pre-made hives, all this stuff. And now I didn't start out that way. I built everything almost early on besides frames. But yeah, I mean at this point if we can't afford to spend the time on that. I probably have about 6 months worth of work to do between now and March. It's not looking good. I'm going to probably hire somebody to help me a little bit, try to get more things done. Time is money. I never really understood that till I started taking this as a doing this as a business. Do you know any beekeepers in Texas that wax coat? Hmm. I don't. Stan Gore might though. He's on the guy that runs the Texas Friendly Beekeepers Facebook group. He might. I know he knows a lot of Texas beekeepers, being one of them himself. I don't know for sure anyone from Texas that does that. Does anyone know where I can buy with rabbit joints versus finger joints? I don't know anywhere online. I know there's a guy in Kentucky selling those for a while, but I cannot tell you the business name or anything like that. If any of you guys are close to Tennessee, the Amish make wonderful boxes, or Kentucky. Um, Guy in Franklin, Kentucky, wonderful Amish cypress boxes. Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, also Amish, wonderful cypress made boxes. You can get deep boxes ready to be assembled. They are finger joints, which is good. I like rabbit joints too. Both of them are great. $13 a box, cypress. See if a college around you has an apprentice program to get the work you need done. Now, that would, yeah, if I can find somebody from that actually would show up and work, that would probably be awesome. And there may be. And sometimes if you can find the right person, that's the trick. That's what scares me the most about it, ever hiring somebody is finding the right person. And it's a delicate balance. A lot of professional beekeepers, you watch them from the sidelines like I do, and it's hard for them to keep good skilled beekeepers because if they're skilled, they're eventually going to go and do their own thing. And who's to blame them if they're bad beekeepers and you don't want them? You don't want them to stick around. But yeah, an apprentice program might be really good. You find the right type of person for that. Um, you know, I'm of the mindset I'd rather pay somebody as long as they're going to do a good job. That's the thing. Still Carrie from Ian. Huh? Yeah, she might like it better in America. I don't know. Some people like it cold. Um, and Ian's so fun to be around with that wonderful personality of his, complaining about the cold weather all the time. She probably has a lot of laughs. But no, seriously, she's an invaluable asset. Ian obviously has found somebody who's willing to work and micromanage in a very important part of his business. You know, people like that. I don't know what he pays her. I'm sure Ian's the type that would takes care of her because people like that you've got to pay. You got to keep them around. I'm sure she does a better job than he does. He says that she does, and that is one thing. I like to look at other businesses. They're not even beekeeping businesses. You look at what they're doing, and some of the best bit run businesses out there. You got the guy that I would kind of be considered the head of this business because you see me as the face and all that kind of stuff. People think of me first, probably over Laurel, which is kind of not fair. That's just the way it works. But I have skills in certain areas, but Laurel has so many skills that I do not have. It is invaluable to have people that think differently than you, as long as they can get along. That's the thing. People got this stupid idea in this country, and I guess in other countries as well. It's a human condition to think if somebody's different than me and thinks differently, that they're being hated against, and that it's terrible. Some of the people I've learned the most from, that have benefited me the most, that have helped me out the most, and are the best for me, are people who don't think like me. Because if people think like me, then I'm not getting anything new. I'm not growing from those people. You see this with high schoolers and college students a lot. They're hanging around people of their age that think the same way, that do the same things. And sometimes that's all right. But you got to be challenged. You've got to grow. And Laurel, she views things totally different. I'll be looking right past the solution and she'll see it clear as day. Sometimes I get it. Sometimes. Laurel said I had one good idea the other day. She was really surprised. Kind of hurt my feelings, but the truth does hurt sometimes. I heard that giggle. So, anyways, you know, yeah, yeah, I hear that. But seriously, surround yourself with those type of people. People that are going to challenge you. Of course, you can't be people that are mean and whatnot, but they got to challenge you. They got to think differently, and you bring something to the table. These really well-run businesses, they put people in positions of authority that are skilled and better than the person at the top in these positions. These are well-run businesses. Most of the places I've worked are terribly ran because they're run by people who are just wanting to make a buck, and they don't put the right people in charge. My Papa Jim did not have a college education, but he was a very big deal at Lucas Oil up in Indianapolis because he worked from the bottom up. I've got more respect for Papa Jim than any man, besides maybe my dad. And he never had a college education, but he was always shut up for work early. He always did a great job, and you could just rely on him. He did what you needed, and he managed. They put him in a position over a bunch of other guys over time. And it was a position that they normally got people with college degrees. And you know what? He retired out of that company, did a great job for him. That's the type of people that you got to get. They did the same thing with my brother. Someone took a chance on my brother, no college education, great computer programmer. They took the time to invest and to teach him how to do it because he showed up to work. He did a good job. It took him a little while to learn the system. No college degree. He's kicking butt over there and taking names now. Give me somebody who can throw themselves in with passion and have the desire over someone who's got a certificate any day of the week. I think the college system is getting outdated and it is useful in certain areas. I don't want someone that doesn't have education doing surgery on me. But at the same time, why do farmers need to have college degrees? Okay. Yeah, Laurel's. Did you guys hear Laurel's giggling? She is literally in the other room. He hawing at me. When you get paid, season galvanized it. Price per pound difference into the product. What is your idea of footage for a honey house, considering processing and packaging? That's a great question. That's one that I've been asking myself on the honey house front because we're looking at getting one built, and we're weighing the balance of what can we afford, and you know, and getting something that we're going to be able to grow into. And it's a delicate balance because we don't want to overspend. It's been our whole philosophy. If you guys just knew the stuff that we do around here, just think some people would think we're crazy. We're not like starving ourselves or anything like that. When it comes to food, we eat well. We're not going out there and buying a bunch of new stuff. We're not doing a lot of Americans do because you can't. If you're running a business from starting from scratch, you just can't do that. You got to be frugal. You got to be smart with your money. You got to not give it up when you can avoid it. I'm looking at something right now that is 40 by 60 in that area for mine. It's bigger than what I need by a good margin. I'm hoping, though, I think we're going to do it though. Instead of getting something that's more around 30 by 40, something along those areas, because I don't want to be 3 years from now wishing that I added on to it. So I'm looking into that size. But one of my friends has an area that's a third that size, and he produces more honey than I do. Not a whole lot more, but more honey than I do, and a third that space, and does very well. In Tennessee, though, I've legally got to get a honey house very soon. Been talking to the state inspector about it, so I've got to work on that. And he's getting the ramrod out there and like, hey man, get onto this. So I've been working with him on that, talking to him about the rules. Tennessee's a little bit more strict than some states when it comes to honey houses. We're not as strict as some states. but I've got to get that done. So when we get that going, we'll be showing you the whole process. It'll be a lot of fun when I'm not pulling my hair out. Yeah, no time anymore. Eventually, Justin, you just get to that point. You have no time, and instead of saving 15 bucks an hour building equipment, I can get it pre-made a lot of times now from Kelly's, especially since now I can buy in bulk, and I can work my job while they're building it for me and make drive a truck for $21 an hour. A lot of these young people don't think there's any opportunity out there. I hate truck driving. I hate it. I've been driving for working on 7 years, and it's been very good for our family. You can make money out there. I didn't have to spend hardly any money to get into truck driving either. So I don't have any loans on it or anything like that. 2,500 pounds. Yeah. Do you have any bears in your area and how do you deal with them? Well, there are some bears that have been sighted. There's not a whole lot of them around here. How most beekeepers are dealing with them is just not letting anybody know about them and making Winnie the Pooh disappear. However, I would prefer to have them relocated. However, there's a lot of issues with that, and a bee yard could be wiped out by a bear in just one day, depending on the situation. So I haven't had to deal with those. I hope that I never have to. First thing I would do is put up electric fences if we started seeing them consistently and seeing issues. Yeah, truck driving was very different, Ian, back in the day. They have put a lot of restrictions on the truck drivers to eliminate small companies. See, a lot of and some of you might disagree with me on this, but see, many people that have issues with capitalism they're not seeing capitalism in this country. They're seeing monopolies. They're seeing Republicans and Democrats vote on bills that are enabling these big companies, like truck driving companies, to implement these laws that make it very hard on the small family truck driving company. They make it hard on the small family farm. You can't sell raw milk anymore, it's illegal because the stuff that we bless that has a lot less nutritional quantity is better for you. And because we're the government, we all automatically know better. Yeah, right. And they're putting these laws on these truck drivers. You can't work as long now. And who's that hurting? It's not making it safer. They say that it is. The responsible truck driver wasn't the issue from the beginning. It's the bad guys that always make it worse for everybody else in every industry. And they're making these electronic log books. Now you can't work, you can't run your business, all that kind of stuff. And it just so happens that one of the people that own the company that makes the electronic logs that are required for trucks happens to have a wife that is a politician of ours. Just so happens. So that's a lucrative way of doing things when you can implement something that just happens to feed it back into you. But whatever. Let's not get into politics. It's crooked no matter where you look. Not beekeeping though. It's awesome. The only thing crooked in a beehive is the bee's legs. That is really weird. Laurel, I'm running out of material in here. Rules were made. Laurel says you're running out of time. Mm. Ladies and gentlemen, I probably need to hop off of here. You all are awesome. Thank you for talking to me, spending time with me today. I'm losing my voice. And we're going to be doing another live chat coming up soon. I'm going to be totaling up more of the individual data. I'm also going to be totaling up all of the money that folks have donated to us on here. We'll have totals. We'll share with you exactly what we have made and how much we have towards this experimental yard. Just remember, if you're buying something through Amazon, go through our links. It's free. If you haven't got an Audible trial, get a free trial. Go through our link for that. Then cancel it if you don't like it. Get a couple free audiobooks. If you've never done it before, it's a great way that everyone can do a little bit to push towards that if you want to, without having to, spend your own personal money if you just can't afford it. There's a lot of different ways that you can help. Some of it's just thumbing up the videos or commenting and say, Kamon, Laura was right and you were wrong. That helps push our videos to the masses out there. Algorithms, baby. All right. Voice is about gone. Laurel said to get off about 45 minutes ago. I'm in trouble. We'll be doing another one of these soon. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Yeah, the boss.